and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the UKSimRacing Community's GT3 League Season 9, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round 7 of 8. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it is the penultimate round, and with it our final sprint race round of the season. And what better place to take to the tarmac than in Brazil, under the sunshine, at the infamous Sao Paulo circuit, or known in full as the Autódromo José Carlos Pace, but you all know and love it as Interlagos. This circuit has been a championship definer throughout the years, and perhaps most notably, of course, back in 2008 with the infamous Is That Glock moment that saw Lewis Hamilton seal his maiden F1 crown. But today we could be seeing a number of champions crowned in both the drivers and the teams championships, should the results play out the way that our drivers reckon they will. But if they do not, it could go all the way down the wire. Indeed, the ultimate question of asking who's the fastest our GT3 class machinery in the Elite, Pro and Am class continues to confound us all the way to the very end. But as we get ready to go racing, we can see our drivers in the background. Of course, you're tuning in live by the official UKSimRacing YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com and search for UKSR or UKSimRacing, you can tune in there. And if you are a follower, why not subscribe or indeed give a like to this video to make sure that you can stay in touch with all the latest broadcasts brought to you by UKSimRacing. In the quarantine booth, you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Brit Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. I'll be bringing you all of your racing action tonight, and indeed for the remainder of the season. And what a season it has been thus far and continues to be, because as we look to our calendar, we can see that whilst we're towards the bottom now, the 26th of February of round number 7, with only our season finale next time out in round 8 at Sebring in Florida of the United States of America, being the final round as we bring the curtain down in our second and final endurance race round on the 5th of March. Well, we've had a long story and a campaign to precede all of these events, whereby back in round number 1 on the 8th of January 2023, we started off the campaign in the Silverstone Sprint, there at the heart of motorsport in the United Kingdom. We saw sparks fly and many a battle charge into a corner as our drivers went 2 or 3 wide at the infamous British circuit. Then they carried the momentum across the pond from what was the United Kingdom to the United States of America, across the Atlantic Ocean for the Daytona road course circuit, and under the Floridian sun there we got to see our drivers battle hard, albeit it was night time, so there was no sunshine indeed in the floodlights. We saw plenty of rivalry, and perhaps the most notable one there was the battle between Eden Frisina and what was Adrian Kukulis in the AM class, where it all went wrong for Frisina but worked out for Kukulis, and also in the Elite class, the battle of the two Protect Motorsport teammates of Ryan Moles and Daniel Thomas, with Moles picking up the win at the finish line. But winding forward to round number 3 at Monza, where it was all about one driver there in Italy at the Temple of Speed, and he really did claim it to be his own, and that was Håkon Grebstad, the Indian Motorsport McLaren driver in the Elite class, running away from the field in qualifying in the race and looking absolutely unassailable in the sprint on the 22nd of January. And we wrapped up the first half of the season in round 4 at the French circuit, Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours. And there in the endurance race, it was all about going with the flow, keeping the pace and managing that consistency. And well, in the process of that, we saw many a sunshine with regards to our drivers in terms of the stars who were rising through the ranks. And in particular, we got to see John Eddowes there put together an absolutely brilliant strategic performance to take his maiden win in the Pro class. But now with the week's break, we then made our way to round number 5, the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, returning with a sprint on the 12th of February. And at the German circuit, we saw plenty of battle, indeed many a contentious moment, and rivalries really started to boil over. And last time out, we made our way down under to Australia for the Mount Panorama circuit, also known as Bathurst. And on the 19th of February, it was once again Håkon Grebstad who ran away with proceedings. Of course, after the difficulties of the official iRacing 12 hours of Bathurst, wanted to make sure he picked up the win, and he did, most definitely indeed. And we also saw in the AM class the one driver shine on through of Aaron McGregor, who didn't just win in the AM class but also finished well inside the top 10 overall, and with a triplet of wins on his back, it now looks like Aaron McGregor is dead certain to be taking the AM Championship crown going into tonight. But of course, we've still got plenty of racing to go, and our host circuit for today, the Autódromo José Carlos Pace. Of course, our drivers will be taken to the Grand Prix layout of the circuit, raced by multiple disciplines over the course of its 82-year history, and there's both the Grand Prix layout and also the MotoGP layout, but we're going to be racing on the classic layout here, as you can see from the circuit map provided to us by iRacing.com. Thank you to them for their wonderful simulator and circuit maps. Well, unfortunately, I think this two-dimensional image doesn't quite tell you the story, because this circuit located in the foothills of what is the Interlagos city of Sao Paulo in Brazil, and the reason why it's known as the Interlagos circuit is because it is situated between two man-made lakes for Sao Paulo. Whereas our drivers make their way across the start-finish line at the run to turn number 1, they'll brake hard into the centre S. A left into right switchback, while drivers they'll be racing through the venerable corners named after the Brazilian driver Ayrton Senna, and as they come out of turn number 2, they'll be going flat out through the Curva del Sol 2 and 3 before making their way onto the Retroposta back straight. In the charge down towards turn 4, they'll break the way into a downhill apex, and as they come through the left-hander, they'll then make their way into turn number 5 and reach one of the lowest points of the circuit. There's one thing we need to point out: that a two-dimensional circuit map does not show you the elevation changes, and this circuit rolls its way through the local landscape. Indeed, the elevation changes become highly prominent as our drivers make their way back uphill from turn 5 into the double right-hander at turn 6 and 7 before breaking hard into the first hairpin of turn number 8. Make it out of that A-OK, they'll come down to Pinheiro corner at turn number 9 and off Camber corner, where it's all about riding on the apex curve, and as they power their way out into the turn 10 hairpin, the slice corner on the circuit, then they'll make their way downhill through 11 at Magulo corner, completely off camber there, and a high risk of understeer creeping in for a good number of our drivers before they break the way into Jinsao corner at 12, and it's flat out all the way uphill through 13, 14 and 15 before they charge their way across the start finish line straight and do it once again. But as we then come on to our rules for today, to give you a reminder, in terms of car setups, this is an open setup series where drivers bring the setup of their choosing to each and every race, but fuel load wise they must take 45% maximum for all races here, and that does of course lead to some mandated pit stops. Now in terms of qualifying, a lone qualifying format shall be used, whereby all of our drivers will take to an isolated instance of the circuit for the qualified session, and drivers have 4 laps or 15 minutes, whichever expires first. That's 4 fast laps plus preceded by a single warm-up lap in order to set their best possible time. In terms of the sprint race that you'll see today, the race shall commence via double-foul rolling start. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements, but we are expecting our drivers to need to come into the pits due to the 45% fuel load, unless they can find a way to be able to make it to the end unscathed on fuel capacity via extensive fuel saving. There are no fast repairs available, so if they are involved in an incident, they will either need to soldier on or come on in and get it fixed, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant voids. But as we look for our rules and regulations, we look back to our live pictures here, and let's take you for our schedule for tonight. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time at UTC. When just under 8 minutes time, we'll be heading into the qualified session, 15 minutes in duration, and there we'll get to see all of our drivers absolutely attack the circuit in anger, albeit they may want to be a little bit hesitant about how much anger they deploy in their qualifying laps, and we'll comment that very shortly with regards to the weather conditions we're seeing here today. And as soon as qualifying is complete, we'll make our way to the grid for our 45-minute sprint race, which will kick off at approximately 8:15 this evening. But while we're a little bit conscious about the weather and the idea of our drivers attacking the circuit in anger over a single lap, which you can see there, an ambient temperature of 23 degrees centigrade, but a reported track temperature before we got underway of the practice session in the background currently of a 47 degrees centigrade track temperature to start off with. That means this circuit is the warmest we have seen of any of our circuits this season. Well, I can tell you now, when the track temperature goes above 40 degrees centigrade in the GT3 car, the tyres really do start to feel the heat and the pressure, and suddenly that grip starts to be very tenuous in terms of the fact the car may slide even under your standard braking zone because the car just cannot offer the grip on the tyre compound. But as we look to our drivers making the way on around, well, Håkon Grebstad will be one of many drivers who knows all about that. And as he makes his way down through Magulo corner into Jinsao turn number 12, of course in the Elite Championship, it's a rivalry between him and Daniel Thomas, with both of them now jointly equal on points, both drivers having 112 points apiece, but the difference is that Grebstad has one additional win, and really for today it's for Thomas to try and fight back and find a way to get another win on the cards. But as far as I'm aware, Daniel Thomas is not in attendance currently, and well, with time running out here, could we see Thomas potentially saving it all up for the season finale in what will be the endurance race at Sebring next time out, where he's going to be giving Håkon Grebstad the momentum going into tonight and out of tonight as a result. But you never know, we could see Thomas turn up at the last hour. But it's not just about the elite battle, of course, as we look to John Eddowes here in the Pro class, making his way into Jinsao corner as well. The TE SimSport Kimi driver here, of course your championship leader in the Pro class by a margin, has extended now to 9 points over Peter Cox after that close rivalry between the pair at Bathurst last time out. And well, as much as Peter Cox huffed and puffed and put the pressure on in terms of one lap pace, Eddowes found that strategy worked to his advantage, and also strong defending meant that in the end it was a critical mistake from Cox that cost him dear in the run to the very end, and Eddowes was able to become our first repeat winner in the Pro class. And whether he's able to beat Peter Cox by 2 points today in terms of what he scores, then the Pro Championship will be his for a round to go. And as we come onto the AM class, of course, well, there's one name out there that perhaps needs no introduction, albeit struggling a little bit in this practice session at the moment, and that is Aaron McGregor, your championship leader by a margin now, which stands at a growing factor of 33 points. And for Aaron McGregor, all he needs to do today is bring home a reasonable result, and therefore he'll put the championship crown out of arm's reach for everybody else, with his main rival at the moment being Darren Sharples, who's on 74 points, only 1 point here from Casper Brotner. And I think right now in the rest of the AM class, it's all about who is going to be in that runner-up spot, given the fact that the P2 through to P5 of Sharples, Brotner, Adrian Kukulis and Michael Warrington, they're only separated by a margin of 6 points in all between the 4 drivers. But for McGregor, of course, still he's got to finish today in order to wrap things up a race early, and that will be his ultimate task here with 5 minutes before this practice session concludes. But as he makes his way on to another lap, we do say hello to a good number of you in the YouTube chat, and it's great to see so many of you, including there Mary Appleton, who is cheering on John Eddowes there, and also we say hello there to UKSimRacing, who's cheering on Håkon Grebstad. I think there that might be in reference to Paul King, UKSimRacing, although do correct me if I'm wrong, UKSimRacing. And we also say hello there to Jack Taylor, who I do believe, who says congrats Paul, and I think that may be in reference to the fact that, well, I think there's been a little bit of words going around in the UKSimRacing paddock, but I'm pleased to announce it live on air, ladies and gentlemen. I earlier today passed my ARDS test for my National Racing B licence in real world motorsport. But enough about me, let's focus on our heroes for today. But it's very kind words to you guys, and also I can see that guy in Bowles, I believe that is Ryan Bowles, also wishing congratulations, but looking forward to being a spectator tonight as well. Bowles will not be seen out of circuit, unfortunate of course, but I can understand Ryan, and well, it's good to see you tuning in, and also thank you, Si, for the kind words there as well, and we look forward to seeing how you get on in the elite class. But as I say, these guys on the circuit you're seeing right now, they're the true heroes out here, and also a good number of also real world motorsporting drivers, or at least track day regulars. As you can see, Casper Brotner making his way out of the south corner and down towards turn number 1. But as they make the way on around here, it's going to be a tricky one given those temperatures, and we could see over the 45-minute race many a driver come unstuck with regards to tyre degradation early on. But as we look to Peter Cox here, making his way through turns 6 and 7 at the moment. Of course, for Peter Cox today, it's going to be a bit of an emotional day in 2 regards. The first one, you'll know about in the fact that he's P2 in the Pro Championship, and he really does need the win today in order to be able to go into the season finale with an opportunity to try and steal the crown away from John Eddowes. But perhaps on a lesser known note, I had the opportunity to catch up with Peter Cox earlier in the week. Well, it is his daughter's birthday as of today, and well, when I had a little chat with him about it, he wanted me to pass on a special mention about his daughter Emily. It's her 26th birthday, and he wanted to just pass on to say happy birthday, Emily, from Mum and Dad. Well, Emily, if you're tuning in right now, hopefully Mum and Dad haven't made you too embarrassed by that. But I can tell you right now, you're absolutely loved and thought of by your Mum and Dad. And Peter Cox right now, not just racing for UKSimRacing, not just racing for himself, but also racing for his family. And it's wonderful to see. It's a wonderful motivator to have a family behind you. And I think Peter Cox absolutely lovely in his racing right now as he makes his way across that timeline there and on to another practice lap as he comes roaring on down and through the centre S here. Of course, this circuit, regular with regards to Formula 1s, but you also see Brazilian stock car racing around here. You don't necessarily see GT3s racing around at Interlagos as regularly, or GT class machines racing around here as regularly as you would in previous years. But this circuit still, it is a very nice circuit for GT3 racing. And the reason for that is it's a circuit that has a little bit of everything. Indeed, you've got extended straightaways, you've got low speed corners, medium speed corners, high speed corners, you've also got off camber corners, some highly cambered corners, and in between there you've also got significant elevation changes, which also will affect the behaviour of the cars in terms of their power deployment, given the fact that some of these cars are naturally aspirated. You've also got cars that are turbo powered, such as the BMW M4 here with the 3-litre 6-cylinder engine, which is bolted with the twin turbo. We also do see there what is the Audi R8, not running any turbo, of course, naturally aspirated, the V10 engine of the Audi R8 LMS, being piloted by Aaron McGregor. And then you've got other cars such as the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo, the V8 engine Ferrari there with the turbo system as well, and that does have an effect over the course of the entirety of the lap. But as he makes his way on down there, rolling his way on through turns 10 into 11 and 12 very shortly, Masters coming on down here. Well, one of the things that will come down to is a strong qualifying lap here to set our drivers up for success, because there are plenty of overtaking spots at this circuit, but the challenge will be you want to try and stay with your target drivers or your target group of drivers early on, and battling here does cost a lot of time because there is the opportunity to go extensively too wide around the entirety of the lap here. There's no real corners where you have to be, well, you're forced to back out per se. You can battle hard over the majority of the lap, and with that, I think for the likes of Masters here, they'll be looking to have a strong qualifying session to avoid any of those unnecessary battles up front. But speaking of things up front here, as our drivers begin to conclude their practice session, and we are only moments away from going into qualifying. Well, if you've ever wondered, if you've been a long-time supporter of UK Sim Racing, and you've ever wondered how you could support UK Sim Racing up front, did you know there's a quick way to do so via our affiliates? Because UK Sim Racing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including Swelly Omeda Sim Racing Coaching, Race Anywhere, and Demon Tweaks. And if you head to our website, that's uksimracing.co.uk today, and indeed the website will appear on screen now for you. You'll notice that the website has recently been revamped, and whilst we don't have our affiliate page currently available where you can see all the details of our affiliates, some of our affiliates do provide discount codes which are available in the UK Sim Racing Discord. And you can see the Discord button up there in the top right corner of the screen, and if you click on that, you'll be taken directly to our official Discord, which you need to be a part of if you ever want to race as part of a UK Sim Racing League or special event. And we're on the Discord there, you can join so that way you're prepared for future events, but also you can make use of those discount codes. And why would you want to do that? Well, you as the consumer, if you use those discount codes, you'll get a discounted purchase, which benefits you, plus also you get your goods that you purchase, plus here at UK Sim Racing, we get a kickback from your purchase, and because we are a non-profit organisation, all of our affiliate earnings shall be invested back into the community to fund future series, including upcoming seasons of the GT3 League, the Porsche Cup, and plenty more that we have planned for 2023. In fact, I heard rumours recently there's an MX5 Cup on the way, unless I'm mistaken, but do remember a little purchase could go a long way in supporting UK Sim Racing. And as we do return to our live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, well, now the thing that's going to go a long way for our drivers today is a strong qualifying lap here as the closed qualifying session is underway, and we see Michael Warrington making his way through turn number 4. Now, coming on down here, what does it take to have a good qualifying lap at the Interlagos circuit? Well, this circuit does not really pander to one specific aspect of a given car. We talked earlier about the fact this circuit has a little bit of everything in terms of straights, braking zones, mixtures of corners, it's got chicanes, it's got elevation changes. So really, this is a circuit which comes down to you as the driver feeling comfortable in the car and being able to extract the utmost out of the car. So this is going to be a circuit where our drivers will be bringing different setups. Some will optimise for straight line speed, some will decide to go for cornering over straight line speed, but then they'll be compromising the run out of turn 12 all the way round and down towards turn number 1. So this is really going to be an ultimate drivers qualifying session in terms of who is able to nail it out of the box and put that time up there and get themselves set up for pole position in class, if not as high as possible up in the overall standings. Well, as we do see here, David Lawson making his way down the Retro Posta and in towards turn number 4, coming all the way down here and breaking his way on through. Very smooth as he comes on down. And thank you for the confirmation there, King Sim Racing. And well, I hope you're doing well, Paul. Indeed, to all you guys and girls that are tuning in at home at the moment, whether it's in the YouTube chat or just trying to be a little bit shy and not feeling comfortable in saying hi, well, don't be shy firstly, because we're all welcoming you here at UK Sim Racing. But I hope you're all having a great weekend as we wrap up February. Goodness me, 2 months are already gone to 2023. The years are flying by recently, well, particularly the months, I should say. But I can tell you one thing, the rounds of the GT3 League may be flying by, but the one thing that never goes away is the close racing action, indeed the great rivalries on circuit throughout the rounds of the season. And as we do see here, David Lawson coming on down through turn number 11, very smooth driving style here in the Ferrari, and smooth is good, of course. When you've got that high track temperature, it really is going to go a long way if you can make sure not to overheat the compound any further. But as he heads on out and up towards the start finish line, we do look to some of our other drivers making the way on around and get himself set up for a lap, including Rock Brakes here as he heads towards the timeline. And also we do look to what is there. Well, David Larson coming on through currently. We just saw a little bit of him. We've also got Thomas Barjak heading towards the timeline, and we jump aboard here with the Audi R8 driver as he takes us around for a flying lap of the Interlagos circuit. So breaking his way into turn number 1 here, braking at the 50 board and coming all the way down to the second gear, a little bit deep there, protecting the tyres and not trying to force the car to stop aggressively as he comes through the centre S and down through turn number 3 at the curve of the Sol. And as he heads onto the back straight here, having to fight with the Audi already, you can see there he's really trying to put the power down, and the car's just not in the optimal window at the moment as he breaks his way to turn number 4. Downhill braking zone here, roll the car down, drops the first gear, up to second now. I think he's decided next time he's going to stay in second for the corner. And as he comes through turn number 5 and heads up the hill towards turn number 6, Bathurst just trying to get himself in the zone right now as he breaks his way into the double right-hander. Here it's about connecting the two apexes. Don't go too deep for the first one. Gets it nicely hooked up there in the return to 7. And now braking with an aggressive approach line there to turn number 8. Points the car in and now gets the power down as he heads into turn 9. Rolling his way through Pellegrino corner as he comes out the apex there. Back on the power nice and early. Brings the rear of the car around and onto the anchors here for turn number 10. Slightest corner on the circuit, we'll see the majority of our drivers drop to first gear here. Some may stay in second for traction. And as he heads out 10 into 11, bans the throttle as he comes on around here. Let the car continue to settle. And as he goes onto the brakes and just out turn 12, uses all the runoff area there into second gear. And that's a run flat out all the way up the hill through 13. Coming up towards turn 14 here. Now he's just got to believe that he got on the power at the right time of asking and has carried all the speed to the timeline here as he heads to the round, but he stays over to the right. And if he thinks he's on a fast lap, he'll pull over to the left-hand side wall there to shorten the run to the timeline. But Bathurst goes again there and not happy with that first lap, but he's still got 3 more to go. And a wonderful reference lap there from an Audi R8 driver. Whilst it was not perfect, you definitely see the signs there where he'll be looking to improve next time around from that 35.470 in the AM class. But as he heads his way onto another flying lap. Meanwhile, after the majority of the drivers have set their first laps on the board, well, it's the name that started to rise quite recently over the last couple of rounds, dating back to the Nürburgring Grand Prix race, of course, in that rivalry with Håkon Grebstad, where the two of them came together. Matthew Crisp, the fastest man on circuit currently, of a 32.636, albeit he's still got 3 more laps to go, and with that, everybody has an opportunity to improve here. But Crisp putting a marker in right now, 2/10 faster than everybody else. Sight Anti, meanwhile, P2 there, as Sight Anti seemingly very comfortable at the Brazilian circuit here. But as Crisp makes his way out of turn number 9 and up into 10, well, meanwhile, we do look to the pro class. It's John Eddowes who strikes first blood there with regards to getting that provisional pole lap, only half a tenth faster than Peter Cox. Both drivers in the BMW M4. Of course, this really does come down to the drivers and how they set up their machines for success, because you can imagine we're running a standard balance of performance here. So for both drivers, same amount of weight, same amount of power output in the car. It's all about how they've got the car set up to suit their driving styles and what they can bring to the table at Interlagos. And as he heads up the hill right now, well, meanwhile, Peter Cox heading on to another lap here. And, well, can the UKSimRacing driver counter-attack here, given the fact that he does now have a bit of a qualifying advantage, but Eddowes haven't gone back to the pits. Therefore, the number of laps available to Eddowes has been slashed in half, as he has to do an out lap again, which will count as one of his available laps when he returns to the pits midway through qualifying. Meanwhile, Cox has gone all in here. We have seen that mix-up of qualifying strategies throughout the season, where we have seen some drivers decide to invest in using all 4 of their flying laps in sequence, whereas others have decided to return to the pits, such as Adrian Kukulis there, made his way into the pit lane. I think deciding to go again here, but now having already used up 2 laps, his out lap here will now count as his 3rd lap, and he'll only get 1 more. But of course, the benefit of doing this is you do those laps on less fuel by default, and therefore, in theory, if you can get the car switched on and you can feel comfortable in the car in a quick enough period of time, then you will be able to achieve a better optimal time, because of course the natural laws of physics say if you've got less weight in the car, aka less fuel, then you will be able to go faster because you're trying to accelerate less mass. But as he makes his way up through turn number 4 and into 5 here, well, Kukulis right now only 400ths faster compared to Warrington. But Kukulis we've not seen battling for pole position in class for some time, and McGregor meanwhile down in P9. But we have been hearing rumours in the paddock that the Audi R8 really struggles around here due to the elevation and also the way it's been set up for the circuit in general. But it does seem as though the Audi drivers here really feeling the pinch, and meanwhile it could be the day for the rise of the BMWs, particularly in the elite and the pro class. And then we do have the one Porsche that's defying the odds versus the army of Ferraris there. Speaking of one of the Ferrari army members, we can see Eric Steigen making the way out to turn 3 and down towards turn number 4 they go, onto what is their final flying lap here, as we do look to Nathan Foster heading across the timeline for SimRacing, and we jump on board here with the SimRacing Blue driver as he takes us around for a lap in the Porsche 911 GT3R. Now the differences we should see here, the Porsche very capable at handling, but less so on the straights. but he will be able to use the brakes in order to brake a little bit deeper into the corners. And as he comes through the centre air, that articulated our point immediately the way in which the Porsche serpentines between the corners as he makes his way down the Red Bull Foster all the way towards turn number 4, and as he breaks his way in onto the anchors in, coming all the way down from 5th into 3rd gear, keeping it nicely hooked up there, putting 2 wheels onto the exit curve, not flying any further off to roll downhill. And as he makes his way through turn number 5, up the hill into 6 and 7, into the right-hander he goes, dropping down from 5th to 4th to 3rd, uses the second downshift to rotate the car on his rear axle as he comes on through into turn number 8 now, dropping all the way down to 1st gear. This is a very aggressive lap from Nathan Foster. I think he feels as though here he's got to go for it, and as he comes on through turn number 9, well, he has got a couple more laps. In fact, he's got one more lap after this one, but breaking his way into turn 10, down to 1st gear, goes a little bit deep there. That's going to cost him a 10-foot corner exit, a little bit of wobble there on the power, some oversteer on power exit as he comes down 11 into 12. Well, now he's got to try and make an amends to what was a difficult midsection of the lap. Coming through turn number 12, hits the apex curve there nicely. As he powers out, this is where the Porsche will feel the pain a little bit, but he has been the fastest man in subsector 3, so that would be in the run in through turn 6 all the way up towards the start of the braking zone for turn 10. And to be fair, we got to see how strong that middle subsector was, and as Foster comes to the timeline here, he's currently P6, but what's it going to be when he crosses the line? He jumps to P2 there, and he's only 200ths of a crisp pole lap. Well, for Nathan Foster, that is absolutely staggering there. A nearly perfect lap, setting a purple sector right in the middle, improved in all 4 other subsectors, and can he go once more and dethrone Crisp, who's in the pit lane, and Crisp has got no more laps available to him. And indeed, we are heading towards the tail end of this qualifying session now in terms of who's got laps left, and as we do look to Kukula's heading on down, in fact, his qualifying session is over. P2's the best he'll achieve in the AM class by a 10th off there. Meanwhile, James Conley headed on through turn number 3 and down towards 4 in the 46 Ferrari in the Valentino Rossi style colours, as we understand it, as he heads into left-hander for turn number 4. Well, rolling on down and around here, and for Conley, it's been some time since we've seen him battling for a spot inside the top 5 in the qualifying order of the AM class, but could it be his day today as he heads on up the hill? Albeit he is only currently at 300ths of Eric Steger's P5 time, and then there is a sizable gap of a further 2/10 to Aaron McGregor, who's moved up to P4, but this will be the first time this season that we have not seen Aaron McGregor line up on the front row of the AM grid, if you will, and well, I think that is a surprise there, but for McGregor, he's just going to focus on one thing, and that will be delivering a result today, because all he needs is a few points on the board, and it will be enough to guarantee he takes that AM Drivers' Championship crown with a round to spare. But as Colin comes down here through turn number 11 through Magulo and up towards Jinsao Corner, well, 4 minutes remain, and we've got a couple of drivers that's still out on circuit. In fact, only 2 drivers currently. Conley is coming to the end of his qualified session. In fact, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, Conley actually has completed qualifying already. Now we double check our statistics, and should be expected to come in at the end of this lap, and as he peels over to the left hand side, he does come in. So in fact, it is only Dean Powell and Ben Watkinson who are still out there, and as Powell comes through turn number 12 here, well, he's got one more lap after this one as the BMW M4 driver running in the elite class, and will roll his way all the way on around now to another lap very shortly. Currently P10, 600ths off at Newman, and he's got a gap of a further, what is half a tenth there, to Daniel Lee, the Ferrari driver, of course, who will always keep your eyes out. He finds a way to improve on the strategy immediately in the race, and Lee, you can never count out being on the podium, even if he does qualify last in class. But as Powell heads across the timeline, not improving that time around, and meanwhile Ben Watkinson in the RSL Privateer McLaren MP4 12C making his way down and around out of turn number 5 and up towards 6. Runs a little bit wide there coming out of 5. I think just a bit unsettled on line, and the car goes round on the rear end, and he catches it just in time, but it looks so there it's not going to be a happy day for Ben Watkins, at least on this lap, as he turns it around there on the runoff area. But given the fact he's only got 3 minutes to go, well, he will not want to be towed to the pits. He'll want to head on around, but of course with that slide, what does that do to the tyre here, you ask? Well, it overheats the tyre compound considerably, and let's just give you an update on that weather. You can see on the right side of your screen, ambient temperature still 23 degrees centigrade, but look at the track temperature, 55 degrees, as we see Watkinson deciding to have it towed to the pits there by looks of things, but 55 degrees centigrade affecting, meaning now this circuit is like running on hot coals. These tyres right now, if you even have the smallest of slides, they are going to blister, and that's something you do not want. It will take the life out of the tyre before you've had the opportunity to take it for its proper heating cycle. But as he makes his way on up the hill here, now Dean Powell, who we focus on, well, coming to the end of this lap and rolling on through towards the timeline. What's it going to be with only a couple hundred yards remaining here? He improved in subsector 2, but he has not improved elsewhere. I think for Powell this may be a bridge too far in order to move up into P9 or higher. He crosses the line there, and the lap is a 33.591. It's not enough to improve, and now our only driver on circuit here, and well, he will not, as I understand it, have another lap. But given the fact I do not think we have overtime here in this qualifying session, but we'll have to wait and see. We've never seen the qualifying session go all the way beyond the 15 minutes as far as my memory serves me, albeit I think that is actually an exception earlier on this season, but we'll find out one or two ways here as Watkinson makes his way through turns 6 and 7 and into turn 8. But what we can confirm is that in the elite class and overall pole, it'll be Matthew Crisp who takes pole position, joined on the front row by Nathan Foster with a gap between the two of them of only 200ths. In the pro class, it is John Eddowes who has once again found a way to outfox Peter Cox by 200ths, if that, in their battle, and they're going to be lined up P6 and P8 respectively, with Håkon Grebstad between them on the rows of the grid. And that's in the overall categorisation. And then in the AM class here, as Watkinson comes on through it, improving on previous bests at the moment, and we'll have to wait to see if he's allowed to complete the next lap, as he does have one more lap available to him. When it comes to the timeline here, it looks like it's Casper Brotner who takes his first pole position in the AM class of the series, and with it, it is a P13 overall on the grid for Brotner. He's joined on the 7th row by Carl McGurk in the elite class, and then he'll have the rest of the AM field line up quite closely behind him, and Adrian Kukula, second place in the AM class, will be lined up directly behind him on the grid, behind Casper Brotner in P15. But as we see at Ryan Davies, they're saying good luck all, watching from afar today. Looking forward to the pro battle, close as ever. Happy to have you join us, Ryan. And also we say hello there to the Bad Game Zero, say good luck all, have a good race. All to Kenneth Palsrud, albeit I'm not quite sure how to pronounce the accent on your A, good sir, but saying go Racing Lab, and qualifying is complete, ladies and gentlemen. There's no overtime. It's time for us to head to the grid. So this is how they line up then for round 7 of 8 in the UK Sim Racing at GT3 League Season 9. Matthew Crisp takes pole position there in the elite and overall categories over Nathan Foster, the Simman Racing at Blue driver. They've been pipped to pole by only 200. Cy Anti and Sean at Valendia line up on the second row there with the Tiki Simsport Kimi and driver enjoyed one of his best qualified sessions of the season. And then it's Jacko Taylor for Tiki Simsport Karl Marte, joined by Tiki Simsport Kimi's John Eddowes. Your pro pole sitter starts P6. Håkon Grebstad and Peter Cox line up together on the fourth row for Ignium Motorsport and UKSimRacing respectively, with Martin Tillin and Daniel Lee completing the top 10 there for Tiki Simsport Corpa and the Privateer outfit together. Then we have on the 6th row Joe Newman for Simman Racing at Red, joined by the Privateer of Dean Powell, and they'll be followed up in quick succession on the 7th row by your AM pole sitter for Old Dudes in Cars, and that's Casper Brotner, who is joined by Carl McGuire. They're the Privateer who starts P14. Adrian Kukulis, the Privateer, starts off at what is there our 8th row, joined by fellow AM driver Tiki Simsport Karl Marte's Michael Warrington. And as we continue to shuffle our way down the grid, we can see in his worst qualifying performance of the season is your AM Championship leader of Aaron McGregor, who starts on the 9th row at P17, joined by Stephen Masters for Tiki Simsport Toa. Behind them, we can see it's Eric Stegen and James Colley, the two AMs who complete the top 20, with row 11 going to Symphony Esports White's David Lowerson, who is joined by Darren Fellows from BDM Racing. There is Daniel Pace, Old Dudes in Cars, and UKSimRacing's Mark Johnson, who make up the 12th row, and they're followed on the 13th row by Darren Sharples and Brock Freites for Tiki Simsport there behind the Privateer. Then on row number 14, Tiki Simsport Corpa's Simon Hartley, joined by Tiki Simsport's Colin Patterson, with Jack Bullen for Tiki Simsport Kimi and the Privateer Thomas Barjuk completing the run to P30. And it's Dion Wren and Ben Watkinson on a row number 16. And that is our final row, ladies and gents, but that's how they all line up. And as Matthew Crisp starts to pull away behind behind the safety car. It is, of course, the partial formation lap here. We don't run the full one, but only the partial. And as we quickly reload the overlay to get back the circuit map at the top right corner of your screen, and that should reappear very shortly. And there it is. We are only moments away from going racing here in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And for Matthew Crisp, can he make it a win for himself at the championship, or will he find that's a bridge too far today? Can Nathan Foster potentially pip into the post? There's all those questions in the elite class, and also we have the question in the pro class of John Eddowes versus Peter Cox. Who of them will bring home the win today, and with it potentially steal the championship or take it to the wire? And in the AM class, can Casper Rottner find a way to win, or will we see a rise through the ranks to Aaron McGregor, or could Michael Warrington and Adrian Kukulas find a way to interdict as well? So many questions. 45 minutes will see us answer as many of them as possible, and as our drivers make the way up towards the south corner, well, the safety car will gradually start to be given time and space to peel away, and it'll be to Matthew Crisp to set the pace as they make the way to the timeline. As we also quickly say hello there to Nathan Foster in the YouTube chat. Thank you for the kind words, Nathan, but we are good to go. And it's lights out and away we go. Crisp backs the field up and then releases them all as they charge their way down towards turn number 1. 15,000 horsepower roars its way into the centre S, and as they come on down onto the brakes here, Eddowes immediately having to worry about defence here as they come on down onto the anchors. But it looks so all safe and sound there as everybody comes on through. Most drivers making it safely through turns 1 and 2 already, and as they come on down to the round onto the Redford Foster, well, it looks so nobody out of step on line here. Deep Power making a little bit of progress in further in the rear of the picture, but as they head their way down towards turn at number 4 now, we look to Håkon Grebstad battling around the outside there of Jacko Taylor as he comes out of turn number 4 and into 5, goes a little bit deep. Meanwhile, further back, Daniel Lee making ground there on Peter Cox and already gaining further progress here as John Eddowes has jumped up to P5, but Peter Cox has dropped back to P10 by comparison in overall comparison. But as they make their way in towards turn at number 6 and 7 here, and McGregor defender on the inside, he's already gained 2 places overall in class, and McGregor absolutely roaring up into P2. But Adrian Kukulas immediately responding as they come down into turn number 9 here, cutting back to the outside. There's contact between the two. McGregor unsettled there, and Kukulas being given the space as they make the way 3 wide into turn number 10. On the outside there is Darren Fellows who's given the shoulder out. Eric Stiegen looks up the inside, and so does Stephen Masters, but Fellows there tucks back in behind and says, okay, I know what's happening here, I'm not going to get involved any further, as they head up towards turn number 12, and on the brakes they go. Fellows goes in hot here and looks up the inside of Stiegen, gets the move done there, which is going to compromise them both as there's a bit of contact between the two of them, and Fellows moves on. But as they head around to complete the first lap of racing here, it's Crisp who leads as he makes his way onto lap number 2. At the site, Anthony P2, Nathan Foster P3, Sean Melandia P4. They're all elite drivers. Then your pro leader, is John Eddowes, being followed by Håkon Grebstad, who looks up the inside there of Jacko Taylor, but goes overly deep into the centre as he brings it back together, but it's not enough. And as they come out of turn into 3 here, Joe Newman at meanwhile P8 behind, followed by Daniel Lee at P9, and then completing the top 10, it's Peter Cox who's got the pressure. Dean Powell and Martin Tilling. It's all going wrong for Peter Cox early on in the proceedings today. He's falling backwards. He needs to go forwards. He's going to defend now. He will not want Powell trying to make the move around the outside of him here, but I think he's not going to have a choice as Powell gets it done. He runs a little bit wide, however. He's got to be careful, of course. The more he runs wide there, the higher the likelihood he'll be given a slowdown penalty for his troubles. And as they make the way out the hill into turn 6 and 7, we can see now Powell and Tilling batting. Tilling on the outside there, and Dean Powell fully committed to the defence into turn 6. Well, I don't know what he's had for breakfast, Dean Powell, but he's really going for it right now, and it's a pleasure to see as he comes down to turn number 8. Now rolling his way into 9, of course. It all settled down for a brief moment here. Really, turn 9, the only corner where you can't go too wide, or you're going to have to both back out considerably. But as they head inwards towards turn number 10, where it has been a dramatic start, albeit no major incidents, but we have seen many a driver either gain place or lose them considerably. And one of the biggest gainers at the start of this race, Thomas Barjuk, who has gained 6 places overall and also 6 in class. He cut his way through the field and made his way all the way up into P7 in the AM class in very quick order. But as he heads into turn at number 12 at the moment, we're hearing that Eric Stiegen has been involved in some sort of incident. He's had to be towed to the pits, and we will try to get a replay of that very shortly, and also get a replay of that race start and how John Eddowes made the progress. Meanwhile, Peter Cox got absolutely absolutely ambushed by the drivers around him and forced down the order. But as they make their way across the timeline once again here, we can see all the drivers snake training their way into turn one. That's where the leader of the pack is trying to break the toe, and everybody trying to follow their toe there to gain the slipstream in the run to the next braking zone, the long straight. But as we look up to Joe Newman here, of course, our main leaders in the overall and the elite category, already down towards turn 4 already, and Newman here now's got the pressure of Daniel Lee closing on him as they make their way up the hill once more out of turn number 5. Now, of course, we've seen Daniel Lee never normally strong in qualifying until recently, and well, in fact in the earliest rounds of the season we saw the strength in qualifying, but more recently we've seen his qualifying performances be middle of the pack, if not towards the rear of the pack. But it's his progress that he makes early on in the races which is absolutely outstanding, and right now really trying to find a way past Joe Newman, albeit I think Newman making that Simracing racing that red Audi as wide as possible as they head out of 8, 9 and into 10. But of course for Daniel Lee, if he can't make the pass on circuit, he'll make it on strategy, but he won't want to be stuck here for too long, because he'll see that Grebstad and Taylor are just up the road, and it's an opportunity for him to close the gap ever more. But as they come in towards turn number 12 very shortly, we'll look back to Darren Sharples, and Sharples as well, another big gainer from the start of the race, the privateer in the 777 car, remembering of course battling for P2 in the AM Championship. He is the P2 man at the moment, albeit only separated between P2 and P5 by 6 points, and therefore for Sharples he'll want to absolutely go for gold, as will Adrian Kukulas, and also will be Michael Warrington. But as we understand it, Michael Warrington in the pit lane for an early incident, and Eric Stegen who involved that incident. But we are going to get a replay now as to what happened to our AM driver on the second lap. Well, this was moments ago. In fact, look at the damage already on the front of the Privateer's car. So there's been a big knock beforehand. Well, went off circuit there, and in the end having to bring the car to a standstill. The car absolutely wounded. Well, as we take a look back at an earlier replay, I think this may explain exactly what happened as we see our drivers battling. Oh, goodness me! And that was Lowerson, and also the BDM racing machine there, all coming together. And, well, 3 wide very quickly end up in disaster for them all. And, well, for Lowerson, will be an absolutely caught out then also for what was Darren Fellows, the 2 pro drivers there and the AM, not having a happy time in the run down the Red Proposta. No, indeed. And as they made their way onwards now, I think some drivers trying to push on with damage on the car, but for others here, it's going to be damage too far. As we do look to Darren Sharp as we return to live pictures, and as they come from through, well, we've also had some incidents earlier on in the race to consider, including an incident for James Conley as we're to understand it, and we will be getting a replay of that very shortly. In fact, here is what happened to James Conley on lap 2. So heading into turn 1 here, battling with the old Dooting cars, driver there, Oliver Brockner, as he came on down into the centre S, comes onto the apex curb, and the car there just steps out on the rear, gets the car stopped in time. It's a brief tap to the wall, but it's not a fatal one for his racing aspirations here today for James Conley. He's able to press on, albeit losing a lot of ground. And as we return to live pictures, those are the big incidents on lap number 2, but we also did have some incidents on lap number 1, albeit not as perhaps dramatic as those, but we will be taking a look back at that race start shortly just to see how the pro leaders managed to switch themselves up in that overall order and how it went wrong for some. But before we do that, we look to Jacko Taylor here battling with Håkon Grebstad. This is the fight for P6 overall, P5 in the elite class, and Grebstad then gets the run, and already Taylor just simply tucks in behind here and says, I haven't got enough momentum at this time. I think that Grebstad getting an absolutely colossal run out to the centre S and onto the Curva del Sol, and then Taylor deciding that just holding the rear guard is better than fighting for the position, because given the fact that Joe Newman and Daniel Lee are right behind there, well, I think Taylor will not want to push the ball backwards. He'll want to try and stay in the hump of Grebstad and stay for those key points. But as they head into turn number 8 at the moment, meanwhile we do look from them to a little bit further behind, and to Tilling here. Martin Tilling chased after Dean Powell, we should say, and Cole McGirt not too far off either. And well, the trio of drivers here all fighting to be inside the top 10 of the elite class, and also just knocking on the door of the top 10 overall, currently owned by Peter Cox in P10 overall. And you can see the pro driver there just slightly off in the distance, so they've still got a bit of ground to make. Meanwhile, Mark Johnson's been involved in a bit of an altercation, and that's at turn number 9 there where it's gone wrong for Johnson. Now, what exactly has happened, we're not quite sure, but we are hearing as well that Darren Sharples and also Sean Valenti have been involved in incidents on this lap, when it's all unfolding once again. Meanwhile, we look back up to Joe Newman, who's under pressure from Daniel Lee. This is for P6 in the elite class, P7 overall. Newman defends on the inside of the right, your picture. Lee on the left-hand side. Watch out for the white and red Ferrari as it looks to try and fight its way round, but Newman goes defensive, goes a little bit deep here, but he holds it hard into turn number 2 on the right-hander, and Lee simply tucks back in as we jump on board with the Ferrari driver. But I think the Britons had enough of looking at the rear of the Audi's V10, and as they make their way onwards down towards turn 4, Newman defends once again here. Newman absolutely insists on holding position. Lee goes to the dummy and switches it to the inside. Can't quite make it work in the end. I think both drivers there now are really starting to dig their fangs in. Well, they may be battling for what is their P6 in class, but for them it's personal. This is like a win. And as they come into turn 6 and 7 now, we can see it, Newman there making it a one-line run as they come up towards turn number 8, but Lee all over the back of the Audi driver here. And as they come through and down into turn number 9, I think Lee's main focus now will be the run onto the next lap, unless he can get Newman to make an error. But remember, all these moments where they're battling, where they're starting to switch direction at short notice, it all puts additional temperature into the tyre compound. And both of these cars, the Audi and the Ferrari, but particularly the Audi, are not known for their stability on a hot tyre temperature. As they come on down for 11, a little bit of a wobble there for Lee. On high fuel, they're coming down through Magulo corner. The car just wanted to slide away, but he catches it in time. Newman being given a bit of a breather here, but that shows how much on the ragged edge of adhesion they are as they head towards the end of this lap and down towards turn 1 once again. But as they come roaring on through, meanwhile we do look from them to P24 overall, and it's Simon Hartley here, the T6 Copper driver, who's gained 5 places in class since the start, jumped all the way up from P11 in the AM class up to the position now P6. Got a bit of smoke there, I believe that's Aaron McGregor who's gone off and around and onto the inside grass there at turn number 12. It's an odd place to see a driver, but McGregor's found himself there, and I think there's a bit of a story to that which we'll try and understand very shortly. But meanwhile, as we look from our AM Championship leader, who's down to P9 in class now, always effective for him, P28 overall. We look back up to the overall leader here, and your elite leader, Matthew Crisp, who's holding off Sight Anthony. And these two have just broken away from the rest of the field. The gap between them and Nathan Foster is a margin now of 4.5 seconds almost. It just seems as though they're in a world of their own. Meanwhile, Newman versus Lee, it's part 2 as they come up through turn 6 and 7. Newman defends on the inside, breaking his way to turn number 8 once again. And with the 997 Audi driver here, he's got Lee really now starting to put the pressure. But as they head out towards turn number 10, well, the pressure's going to subside for a brief moment, and Jacko Taylor's probably looking at his rearview mirrors at the moment. That's the Tiki, this is what Audi were referring to in front of this pair. Probably thinking, well, thankfully it's Newman and not me who's having to fend off Lee. And as they come down through turn number 11, well, I think Taylor right now may not want to be too certain about that for the simple reason that Newman is closing on him at a rapid rate of knots. But as they come through the left-hander here and up the hill once they go, meanwhile, we look a little bit further back and we can see how just off of them, well, now Peter Cox has got Dean Powell, Martin Tin and Carl McGirt all closed up behind him, and also he started to get ever closer to Lee. So for Newman, he needs to try and make a move here, and I think Newman's doing precisely that. As you can see, Newman on the right of your picture, Taylor on the left as they bow into turn 1. Onto the brakes they go, Newman through, Jacko Taylor defends on outside, tries to cut it back to the inside, can't quite find it in the end. He has to settle to drop back to P6 in the elite class. And as they head onto the back straight here now, Lee will have a new rival to play with, but can he find his way past another Audi? I wonder whether he'll be able to this time around with poor run. They're coming out of turn 3, just running a little bit wide, and I think for Daniel Lee, he's having to calm the car down a little bit. He may have just put a little bit too much temperature in the tyres. But meanwhile, it's not just in the elite class where everything's happening. In the AM class here, we can see Casper Bronner battling hard with Simon Hartley, gaining the place of Simon Hartley as he made his way to turn number 1. Both drivers there have a little bit of damage to the car, particularly Casper Bronner, who's got a bit of damage to the front of the car, albeit actually I think Hartley's not got any damage at the moment that we can visually see. But as they head down towards turn number 4, take a look up the inside, there's Hartley, but I think a little bit too far back to go for the move. But whilst we do have a brief breather, we have an opportunity to take a look at what happened to a good number of drivers on lap 5 in particular, starting with Darren Sharples. With that, hold that thought, ladies and gentlemen. Colley's looking for the move here on the inside of Simon Hartley into turn 6. There's contact between the two of us. Conley comes off the curb, and then Mark Johnson into the back of Conley. It's chaos there between the three of them, and you can see Mark Johnson has emerged out of the carnage ahead of the pair of them, keeping it on circuit. It's David Larson off circuit there as well, but for both Hartley and Conley, it's a bad day at Brazil. But Johnson here with the damage, and we did see Johnson earlier off of circuit of what was, we do believe, was turn 12. As he now returns to the racing. Well, for the Mercedes driver here, that's not the way he would have wanted to gain those places, and I think he'll already be aware there's a little bit of a cloud hanging over him after this race in terms of stewarding. But meanwhile, as we look back up to the elite drivers here, Jacko Taylor still fending off Daniel Lee. Well, it may be that he's almost been tagged in and out with Joe Newman. I think Newman's saying, okay, Jacko, you can now deal with Lee. I don't want to have to deal with him anymore. But I think Lee's got bigger fish to fry now, as he's got one of the pro drivers behind him, Peter Cox. And Cox looking up the inside here, looking for the mover for Peter Cox. This is a critical move he's got to make. As Lee goes wide, he goes off circuit and rejoins there via the runoff area, decides to avoid the grass strip, and Peter Cox moves up into P8. And why is it such a critical move, I hear you ask? Well, for Cox, he needs to beat John Eddowes, and Eddowes is 3.2 seconds up the road in P5 overall. Peter Cox is P8 overall. So right now for the UK Sim Racing driver, if he can't get Eddowes to come to him by the elite passing Eddowes, then he's got to do it himself. He's got to go after his main rival here to try and make this go to the final round. But as he heads into turn number 10, if things finish as they are at the moment, with Eddowes taking pole position, well, it will mean that Peter Cox cannot make it go to the end, because Eddowes will be guaranteed to score at least 2 more points if you presume that the fastest lap goes to Peter Cox. But as they head out to turn number 12 here, up the hill they go. Well, now we do get the opportunity to take a look back at what happened to a good number of drivers, starting with Darren Sharples on lap number 5. Well, this was in the run down towards turn number 4, and this is with Aaron McGregor. I think Sharples has already got damage on the car, in fact. Car's wobbling from side to side. Well, whatever's happened to Sharples' car, it's technical damage. He's had to be towed to the pits. We then look what's happened to Mark Johnson late on that lap, and this was in fact coming into what looks to be turn 8 on the power. They're down into 9. The car starts stepping out and it just goes there on the curve of 9. The front left tyre, I think, just having a bit too much grip on the curve. Meanwhile, the rear tyres, particularly that rear right, just trying to get the power down and not giving him any control other than to go round. But he got it pointed the right way. And meanwhile, what happened to Sean Valandia? Well, the TE Sport McLaren driver here coming down through turn 11, rolls his way out to the curb, onto the brakes. A little bit of a wobble there under brake. It is a side of sight to go. Oh, goodness me. And well, in the end, it was contact with the Porsche Consul of Nathan Foster. So Foster had made a mistake, and then Valandia just came into the scene of the instant and well, pointed Foster in the right direction. In turn, got turned onto the grass. Not the way he wanted it to go whatsoever. And those are the 3 big incidents that occurred on lap number 5. As we return to your live pictures now, still more racing to be had. Of course, we're only 15 minutes into the 45 minutes, and well, in 15 minutes, I think we've had enough incidents to last us a lifetime here in Brazil. That's what happens when the racing is so close, of course, and the racing is on the line. These things will happen. And as Peter Cox here continues to try and chase after Jacko Taylor and Joe Newman for the purposes of hunting down this man, John Eddowes, the TE Sport Kimi driver in the number 17 BMW here, who's got Michael Warrington in front of him, albeit Warrington will have blue flags waving and steers well clear there on the outside line, albeit I think Eddowes would have been hoping that Warrington would appeal to the inside there to give him the optimum run down the start-finish straight, but it's only going to be a minor complaint if that. And well, at the end of the day, Warrington doing everything right in terms of moving aside and respect to the blue flags. And as they head the way through turn number 3, we look up to Nathan Foster here, who has got Håkon Grebstad closing. Keep in mind, of course, that Foster's got damage on the left-hand side of the car from the driver's perspective. And as the camera pans around, Grebstad up the inside on the right of your picture, makes it look simple into turn 4 and gets it on the brakes. So I think Foster wasn't going to offer too much of a defense for the simple reason, and with the wound on the car now, he'll be thinking about trying to conserve places rather than hold them hard. But as he heads up towards turn number 6 here, Grebstad gets the move done, and now his next target, we saw Anthony, who is 6.5 seconds up the road, and the top 2 have just left the rest of the field standing. But as they make their way onwards towards the second half of this lap, meanwhile we look back to the AM class here, and we look to Thomas Barjuk, who is chasing after Mark Johnson here in the battle for P4 in the AM class, P21 overall. And it does look as though Johnson here started to break away a little bit as they come out of 4 and into turn 5. A nice run there from Johnson. Meanwhile, as they head up the hill, and we're hearing that Daniel Pace has been involved in a return to the pit. We do hear about the tow there, but not about what damage has been done to Daniel Pace's car. We do get a replay of what happened to James Connolly on lap number 8. Well, this was Connolly, of course, this was the battle between Connolly, Hartley, and then Johnson coming into the situation, and well, they made the way in there. I don't think Johnson had enough time to react whatsoever, so the 2 cars are already starting to lose it. Johnson there, imagine when you're going into the double right on power, you've got all that speed. If you slam on the brakes too hard, your car is going to go round. So really, it was 2 devils on his shoulder, one saying, well, you're going to have to stamp on the brakes here to stop, the other saying, we'll try and lift off the throttle and react to the situation, and either one he chose, it was going to end in difficulties for the number 11 Mercedes driver. But as he heads on up the hill here and all the way through, making his way onwards towards turn number 1, we we do look from him to Peter Cox here, who battling with Dean Powell into the braking zone here for turn number 4. Live pictures. Powell looks around the outside here. Peter Cox gaining 1 place on the elites earlier on. He's going to lose another here if Powell can make this move hook up. As they head up the hill and in towards turn number 6. Cox has got the nose ahead, but Powell's looking up the inside here. There's the overlap and he has to leave the door as a result. But Powell's got the run through 7. And for Cox here, I think he's battling against an uphill situation as they head on through turn number 8 and down into 9. And Dean Powell moves up into P8, and Peter Cox once again finds himself with 3 elite drivers between himself and his pro rival target of John Eddowes as he heads in towards turn number 10. So it stayed the same here after 18 minutes being turned. And for Peter Cox now, he's got to think about strategy. What can he do to try and subvert the situation and find a way of getting close to Eddowes? Because we know they've both got very similar pace, but it just seems as though that pole lapping class and being able to out-qualify Cox by 2 places overall has just given him enough breathing room. But as he heads onwards towards the next lap with Cox in tow, we look to Darren Fellows here, continues to chase after Stephen Masters as they make the way on up the hill and in towards the next lap, coming out of turn 12 now, and both drivers here pressing on in pace and anger. But meanwhile, we do get an opportunity to take a look back, an incident that did occur a little bit earlier on. In fact, we'll have a look at that very shortly. I think there was a bit more to the whole Darren Sharple's incident on lap 5 compared to what we've previously seen, and we will be getting a replay of that shortly. But you look to Darren Fellows here, of course, with the wounds on the car from the incident in the run down the Reparate Foster. But as they break the way in, the Masters there covering off the 404 BDM Racing driver just about as they head into the Curva del Sol. Well, as they come on down now, we do look to what happened to Darren Sharples, and I believe this replay may just explain the full story. Coming down the hill there, and oh goodness me, and that was contact with Daniel Pace, and then further contact there with what was the BDM Racing Ferrari, and from that, Sharples with the damage there. You can see already the car coming off the curb, and then as the camera flicked round, we got to see the net outcome of that, and Sharples having to head off circuit there with a car that was in a worse state than the start of the lap. But unfortunately there for Sharples, and that tow really has ended his aspirations for today's racing. But 20 minutes complete, we've still got 25 more to go, and as we continue to watch our drivers push on around here, still plenty of questions to be answered, including Chris versus Anthony. Which one of the two here, the runaway leaders, will find a way to win today as they head on down towards the next lap? And Chris having to defend here. So Anthony looking around the outside, onto the brakes they go, and will Chris here now recognising that the piece is going to be broken here. It's almost as if you could say a temporary truce has formed between the two drivers. At the start of the race, they've worked together to open up almost a 7-second gap, but now that Anthony feels as though that gap is big enough, well, now it's the case they're no longer friends, they're enemies once again. And who wants to win more was they come down into turn number 4 here. Chris covers off Anthony, but I think Anthony a little bit wary of the fact Chris coming over quite late, but Chris goes wide. That's going to cost him a lot of speed in the run up the hill as the Ferrari here starts to build up speed. Of course, both of these machines, the BMW and the Ferrari, known for their straight line performance. As they break the way into turn 6, Anthony looking around the outside, tries to cut it back, but Chris nails the line there. And as they come into turn 8, I think now Anthony just trying to poke holes in Chris' defence, trying to see where he's weak, where he's going to react, where he may just simply fall foul. And as they come out of turn 9 into 10, we've also got to keep in mind we are starting to get closer and closer to the suspected pit stop time. We normally do see our drivers coming around the region of the 20th through to the 27th minute. We are now in the 22nd minute, so we are in prime pit stop territory as time rages on here under the sun. And well, to put it in perspective in terms of those temperatures at the moment, of course we did see earlier 50 plus degrees of track temperature, and I can confirm to you at the moment, as you look on the right side of your screen, it is still 55 degrees centigrade on track, and ambient has raised by a single degree. This is going to be absolutely grueling on the tyre compound, and our drivers right now, they are having to be hypersensitive to every possible slide. As meanwhile we look back here to Dean Powell battling with Jacko Taylor, trying to gain another place. Well, Powell may have not had the qualifying session he wanted to, but he's having the race of the day, and as he breaks his way into turn 1 on the outside there, they come on through. Taylor's going to defend inside to outside here into turn 2, but Powell goes all in, but can he invest enough? No, he can't. In the end, he has to back out, and Peter Cox gets right up behind him here. And now for Cox, he's really got to try and force the move. I think you'll recognise that Powell is the faster of the two of them at this point in the race, but for Peter Cox, he cannot waste any time here. And as they head on down towards turn number 4, well, Cox there running outside of the toe. I think he's used that to try and bleed some of the top end speed off his own BMW. Meanwhile, that's a car off the circuit, and I cannot tell you that is at the moment, but it is one of the TE Simsport machines. I think, in fact, that may have been Simon Hartley who's got it wrong coming out of turn number 4, and will, for the AM driver there, a lap down on the leaders now. It's a difficult day for Hartley that's continuing to compound and get worse by the looks of things. Meanwhile, we look up to John Eddowes. And Eddowes finding his way past Nathan Foster. Well, Eddowes is now up into P4 overall, and the TE Simsport Kimi driver here continuing to streak his way past, and now he's got the Simram Racing pair of Foster for the blue outfit and Newman from the red outfit right behind them as they head on down and around towards turn number 12 once again. But Eddowes definitely all fired up here, and this will not, if he brings home this win today, it will be a third win in class, but also it will be the first time he's finished overall top 5 all season as he heads on around for the next lap. As he charges up towards the turn at number 1 once more. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we can tell you that Peter Cox, well, he's not trying to be outdone here as he continues to chase after Powell, but the frustration building, and well, now that frustration will be lifted a bit as Powell comes into the pit lane there, but for Cox, he has lost a driver who he's been using the toe of quite recently. He is 7 tenths behind Taylor, so that will give him somebody to leech a little bit of straight line speed off of in the sense of using the slipstream factor. As he gets it wrong, they're coming out of 2, and to let the car slide and restabilise, well, the damage has been done in the fact he's still got 3 elite drivers between him and Eddowes. Of course, we don't know how much fuel saving either of our pro drivers have been doing, and for all we know, it could be that perhaps Peter Cox has been doing more fuel saving, albeit I would gather, given the amount he's had to try and push to get past the elite drivers here, if anything, maybe Eddowes has once again done a little bit more fuel saving, and that has also been what we've seen in the rounds, and we saw that at Bathurst last time out, just how Eddowes was able to fuel save and gain 3 seconds in the pit lane and jump back ahead of Cox on pit exit. But meanwhile, speaking of pit exit, the driver's coming around to meet it. Casper Rock there for Old Dudes in Cars P3 in the AM class, and with Deep Powell coming out, he decides to go deep there. Makes sense. Don't fight a guy who just came out the pit lane who you've yet to pit, because there's just no value in doing it. All you're doing is losing your own race time, and the ODC driver, or the Old Dudes in Cars driver, knowing that and executed it to aplomb. But as he makes his way through turns 6 and 7, his next target will be Brock Freight, and will Freight just a little bit further up the road there, 2.5 seconds up. And well, meanwhile, in the AM class, we haven't really talked about him for some time, and that's because he's run off into the distance and really left everybody else behind. Adrian Koukoulas here, the privateer from the United States of America in the 917 Porsche, now 14.5 seconds clear of Brock Freight, and will absolutely delivering here today, and I think trying to make it his day in the spotlight as he comes on out of turn number 14 into 15, and I don't think anybody's going to be catching him at this rate unless he makes an error. But speaking of errors, of course, he's been prone to a couple of them, but today Aaron McGregor here continues to try and pick his way back up the order. His next target is Jack Bullen as they battle into turn 6 up the inside there, the TE Simsport driver, and McGregor, the AMR Racing privateer, finding the way on through as he moves up to P5, and if things were to finish as they are now, McGregor would still be your AM class champion. He just needs to get the car home and get some points registered on the board. But as he comes on through and around and up towards turn number 10 once again, we do say hello there in the YouTube chat to Matt Maddox, also to Darren Sharples, and to Slash Noodles, who are the Slash Noodles in particular cheering on Symphonite Power, and particularly Symphonite Esports. And well, speaking of some of our Symphonite Sports drivers, we can tell you a little bit more about what is there. Not Peter Cox, my apologies, Matthew Crisp versus Cy Anthony, and Cy Anthony in particular, who right now tucked in behind as they make their way into turn 12. As we hear, Colin Patterson's been involved in a bit of an incident. We have also had the retirement of David Larson confirmed recently, the pro driver for Symphony Esports. It's gone that wrong for him, but right now for Cy Anthony, it's all going right today so far, albeit he's got one more driver to pick his way past, and that is Crisp, to try and make it a win in Brazil as they head across the timeline. And again, Crisp hooking to the inside line here as they head towards turn number 1. Cy Anthony's got all the speed, but he has to back off here into turn 1. It looks as though that the pair, despite the fact they're having these little squabbles between them, just not losing any time, gaining more and more time on the rest of the field. Now 8.5 seconds clear of Håkon Grebstad, and well, how a week of the circuit makes a difference. But meanwhile, we've also got strategy being executed. Newman and Taylor both in the pit lane as I look at my content booth window, but we focus here on the battle for the lead of the race, and Anthony's still stuck behind there. But I think now his directive's got to be to try and save just a little bit more fuel in order to get the jump in the pit lane. I think we'll see both of them coming to the pit simultaneously, but if Cy Anthony can just make the fuel go a little bit longer, then he may give himself that opportunity to then be the one who's defending all the way to the end. but at the same time you can imagine that Chris may also be trying to turn the wick slightly down here in order to give himself a bit more strategic variety. Further down the order, we've got more pit stops occurring. Dion Wren, Adrian Kukulis and Mark Johnson into the pit lane, which does mean that Casper Bronner's gone to lead a lap of the race in the AM class. But as we look from them to Nathan Foster, all right now tucked in behind John Eddowes, and these two of course battling for P4 overall. The Pro ahead of the elite driver as they head into the right-hander of turn number 10. And coming on down here, will Foster right now, knowing he doesn't need to technically battle Eddowes, but with Peter Cox also behind, well, Cox has been unleashed now with the fact he's not got to deal with Dean Powell, Jacko Taylor or Joe Newman between him and Eddowes. It's only now Foster. I think with Cox having a lot more visibility to his target, he's now starting to bring down the time, because Peter Cox at the moment, if you exclude your top two just coming to the pits, Peter Cox is the fastest man on circuit. He is giving it everything here to try and turn around a difficult start, but they're all into the pit lane. They come on in, and will we look from them to your leaders who leave the pit lane very shortly, and they're both parked up, albeit obscured there by the grandstand furniture. Oh, we can see Crisp up on the jacks, and Sight Anstey meanwhile not on the jacks, and Nathan Foster comes on in, and so does there Eddowes, but Eddowes misses pit box slightly, and as they make the way away, Sight Anstey and Matthew Crisp both an identical pit time there, albeit Sight Anstey's pit time just about 3/10 faster all in all, but it's not enough in the end, and as they come on through and back onto circuit, it will be Matthew Crisp who still leads this race by a margin of half a second over Sight Anthony. Meanwhile, coming out the pit lane now, there's Peter Cox, there's Håkon right behind him, and as they come on through, Joe Newman's coming on around here, as Newman pulled off a bit of magic as they head down the Ripoposta straight, where it looks as though Eddowes right now is ahead. What about Peter Cox? In fact, that's Peter Cox, that's not Eddowes, my apologies. Peter Cox has jumped ahead of Eddowes there, with Eddowes missing his pit box, and Grebstad goes around the outside. The elite driver here does not want to wait, but Peter Cox here wants to try and keep at bay a little bit to give himself a bit more breathing room, but there has been a change to the Pro League. Peter Cox has taken the lead, and right now, as things stand, it could be that it goes down to the wire in the Pro class, the season finale. But immediately there, Newman not wasting any time, and the elite drivers all trying to pick their way past the Pro leader. But Cox there defends hard. He wants to keep Newman behind. He wants to force this all the way. But Eddowes there says, okay, if Newman can't make the ground, then I will. But as they come into 10, Eddowes going round the outside. Newman getting into the fight here, and Eddowes has to back out. Meanwhile, Jacko Taylor tucks in behind here. It's strategy all over the place here for our drivers, and you can see just how for 6 drivers, all the strategies have intermingled, plus also pit box there for John Eddowes. It's cost him ever so dear, and now the pressure is on him with 15 minutes to go to try and get back into the lead of the class. Meanwhile, between the two leaders, Sight Anthony up the inside here, and Matthew Crisp into turn 1, and Chris there's gone deep. I'm not sure if there was contact between the two of them, but as they rejoin, well, Sight Anthony takes the lead of this race, but we're not sure exactly whether it was contact, netcode contact, or whether Chris just simply slid away from the corner. But the battle goes down towards turn 4. Sight Anthony's backed off there. I think he feels as though he was culpable for contact, and Chris retakes the lead of the race, but now he'll know that Sight Anthony's no longer playing around, but Chris goes a little bit deep, and as they head up the hill here with the two drivers now definitely running on hot tempers. Meanwhile, heading up towards turn number 4 in turn, Jacko Taylor here looking around the outside of Newman. He's got the nose ahead, and meanwhile Eddowes goes into the inside here. The Team Simsport drivers double team on Joe Newman, and it's a reverse motor manoeuvre as they make their way up the hill, and Newman is robbed, and Eddowes goes round the outside, where you can see that Taylor trying to give Eddowes every opportunity to go hunting after Cox. It's teamwork that's being played here, and Jacko Taylor right now, he's going to do everything in his power to keep Newman at bay. I wouldn't be surprised that the team principals on the radio saying you need to keep Newman and Powell behind, let Eddowes hunt down Cox as they make their way up into turn 10 here, and as they come on through the right hand with Daniel Lee right at the back of this group, because he dropped a long way back, but he's jumped back into the fight through strategy, and as they come down through turn number 11 up towards 12 here, well, the drivers right now all pushing on, and there's the question of whether the tyres will go all the way to here. We saw a couple of drivers up on the jacks to change a couple of tyres. Others did not remember, of course, with the most recent update to iRacing. Now for the GT3 class machines, fuel and tyres are changed simultaneously, not in sequence, and it does lead to a little bit more strategic variety. Do you go onto a set of replacement tyres, at least on the fronts on one side, but they'll be cold for a couple of laps, so you've got to bring them up to temperature, or do you stay with the old rubber that's worn down? Well, Newman right now staying in P5 in class, and Woods affecting P7 overall as he keeps Powell at bay, but Powell there with a little bit of a wobble on oversteer, coming out of 1 into 2, and now Lee's all over the back of them as they head on down towards turn number 4. Now Powell defends it, puts it off centre on the inside, but in the end returns to the racing line. Lee looks up the inside here. Can he outbrake the BMW? No, he cannot. And instead tucks it by him once again. But Powell there really showing today a huge amount of resilience after an awful qualifying session for the number 6 BMW driver, fighting his way up to P6 in class. He's gained 4 places in class and continued to try and make headway here as he hunts down a top 5 finish. Meanwhile, we look from him back down the order a little bit further to Adrian Kukulas, your AM leader here, who after his pit stop continues to lead down by an extended margin of 22 seconds. And Kukulas here in a very comfortable position. But meanwhile, we look to Nathan Foster for a brief moment. In fact, it looks like Daniel Lee has been passed there by Nathan Foster as we look away for one moment and the immediate movement occurs. And we can take a look back very shortly. In fact, we do have a replay of how Nathan Foster got the move done on Daniel Lee for P9 overall, P7 in the elite class. But this was coming off of the apex of turn 8 into 9, and Lee goes a little bit deep. Oh, goodness me, and there's just a car pointing the wrong way. And, well, is that Jack Bullen, I wonder? It was Jack Bullen who'd gone round. So what happened to Jack Bullen? Right on board here with the TQ Sport Kimi driver at the time, running down in what was P24 overall, P8 in the AM class, and the car just goes there on turn into turn number 9. He's just having drivers around him and having to wait before he can get back up to power, and well, very patient on the brakes there, but that is how everybody was upset. Daniel Lee in particular losing out as a result of that, as they all split the seas around the stricken BMW. But as we return to live pictures now and heading on down towards turn 4 this time, well, Nathan Foster's gained 1. He'll now look to gain another, of course, at one point battling for a podium finish here, and now looking to battle to be inside the top 5 of the elite class, which not gone the way he's wanted it to. A mistake at turn number 12 puts some damage on the car, and after that it really has been a gradual downward spiral, but he will want to arrest that before it's all over. 10 minutes still remaining plus the final lap, and as he heads after Dean Powell here, well, where can he make the move? He knows he's the faster of the drivers in terms of one lap pace. We saw that in qualifying, and we have seen that typified today. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we can see Casper Brotner chasing after Mark Johnson for P3 in the AM class, P18 overall, and these two no strangers to battling one another. Of course, great rivals and friends all the way from the GT3 League at Season 8, but as Johnson there goes a little bit deep, coming out of turn 4 into 5, with the Mercedes very strong up through the gearbox, up to top gear. The Ferrari, meanwhile, has got all the top speed localised into 5th and 6th gear, and as they come through turn 6 and 7 here, no exchange at the moment. Brotner trying to look for the cutback run in 6 into 7, and then battling into 8. But in the end has to wait and sit behind there. Johnson just doing enough to keep the place as they come down through turn number 9. We're rolling off the corner here. We ride on board the gearbox here and look back from Mark Johnson in the UKSimRacing machine. Well, if he can't quite get the run out of turn 12, then the move's going to come, and Whitback goes a little bit deep there, coming out of 10 into 11, and we are aware of battling further up. Joe Newman falling down the order there on our timing tower. We'll have a look at that very shortly, but Johnson here still trying to keep Brotner at bay as they make the way out of 12. Now, does he get the power down correctly this time? It does look as though there you can see the Mercedes with 6.3 litre V8 engine absolutely bolting away from the stable horse of the Ferrari, and as they head up towards turn number 1, flat out here, now the Ferrari will start to gain little by little in the toe, but it's not a long enough straight, plus the damage that Brotner has to the front of the car, it's compounded his woes. As they head on to the next lap, Johnson is clear for now, but the Ferrari looking menacing in the corners. Meanwhile, we look back up to the elite class, and we'll one driver in particular, Jacko Taylor, who's gained, so has Dean Powell. What exactly has happened to Joe Newman, I hear you ask? Well, we do get the opportunity to take a look, but before we do that, Dean Powell has gone round, and hold up a second, who's gone off the circuit? That's Dion Wren, who's, in fact, Dion Wren's a bit further back, my apologies, that's Martin Tillin, who's had to take a bit of a rallycross evasion, and also Sean Valandia, who's jumped all the way back up into P8 in the elite class as a result of this. Well, it does look as though here a number of drivers started to struggle, but what happened to Newman, and then what happened to Dean Powell? Well, we start off with Joe Newman here now, watching, of course, the Simam Racing red Audi. Oh, a deep power contact there on the rear of Joe Newman's car, and Newman just sent to the tyre barrier. Well, I think there might have just been a little bit of misinterpretation with regards to braking on that one. And as we ride on board here with Dean Powell, you see the overspeed. Look at the speed he gains, and as they come into the corner, it's goodness me, early braking there from Newman. I think that's what caught Powell by surprise. I don't think he expected Newman to brake that early, and I think Newman in braking early, conscious of the tight run he had into turn number 1, but Powell there almost coming through like a battering ram. We had nowhere else to go being in that close run, and then only moments later, of course, we saw Dean Powell dropping down the order, and this is what happened to Dean Powell in the run up towards turn number 8. Well, smooth run initially on throttle, coming down into turn 9 here, and well, oh goodness me, a contact there from what was Nathan Foster. Well, the IRacing blue driver there, getting it wrong under braking into turn number 9, and it does look as though here a couple of hot heads really starting to have difficulty, but understandable, of course, for our drivers pushing on as much as they have in this race has definitely been one. Well, I think if they're going to be exhausted from a single race today, the 45-minute sprint here at Interlagos definitely seems to have put the pressure on our drivers, because as things continue here, we've got battles at left, right and centre still to play out, and Casper Brotner in the meantime has found his way past Mark Johnson for P3 in the AM class, and this is how the old dudes and cars driver got it done. So making the way on down the Retro Posta into P4, into turn 4 we should say, on the brakes there, and Casper Brotner, well, the door was being shut there by Johnson, but Johnson saw that Brotner got alongside under braking and said I can't close it anymore, and Brotner there, we made a late move but he made it count, and the number 32 driver continuing his way up through the order. His next target, if he can make it happen, is Brock Freight, who is only 2 seconds up the road, and the Tiki Supersport driver right now on course for his best result of the season in the number 42 car, but can he keep Brotner there for another 7 minutes plus that final lap? It is going to be a challenge, because Brotner has been cutting a whole 5/10 of a second a lap out of Freight, left, right and centre, as they make the way onwards towards another lap. Meanwhile, we look up to the top 2 here, and after their pit exit, Matthew Cribbs has opened up a lead of 1.5 seconds there to St Anthony as they come on down into turn number 9. And meanwhile, we need to cut that thought for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, because we look here to another battle of the elites, and it's Lee on the right of your picture versus Foster on the inside on the left. As the camera turns around, Nathan Foster moves up into P5 in the elite class ahead of Daniel Lee, and Lee just not able to carry the speed up the hill compared to the Porsche. And as the number 52 driver, IRacing Blue, makes his way up into the top 5 in the elite class once again. Well, Daniel Lee here, he's fought his way all the way up into P6. It's been a difficult one, however, and I think the 188 driver really right now having to try and limit the damage from today, as that Ferrari continues to play pace, but it just does not seem to have an edge over its peers. These slides, they're coming out of 11 into 12. I think also the tyre wear is starting to have a huge factor. You just see that the car not looking comfortable whatsoever, and the Ferrari, of course, very sensitive to degradation on its rear tyres as they make their way up towards turn number 1 once more. But 5 minutes still remain, and we look here to the battle in the Pro class for the win, and what is for them P4 overall as well. Peter Cox leads with John Eddowes behind, and you can see Jacko Taylor there just tucked in behind his fellow Tiki Supersport compatriot as they make the way onwards towards this lap. Down onto the rest of Foster Straight they go, and as they make the way out towards turn number 4, I think Taylor here, knowing he's got a 6-second gap to what is their Foster further back. I don't think Jacko Taylor's going to try and push Eddowes too much here or pressure him into a mistake or try to find the move, because he'll recognise at the same time that right now this is Eddowes' opportunity, if he can beat Peter Cox to the finish line, to take the Pro Championship crown around early, and that's why he's standing in formation behind really right now. With Taylor being clear, he'll be grateful for the fact he can have a little bit of calm and just use Eddowes as a base car. But as they make the way into turn 8, of course, driver instinct always does take over a little bit here, and I wonder if towards the end of the race, if he sees that Eddowes is not able to make the ground on Peter Cox, they may swap the places over here, given the fact that Taylor has definitely done some hard work here for his teammate today. They've worked this together, but the time presses on. In fact, there, Peter Cox with a slight error coming out of turn 10. The gap is coming down, as mentioned there, by that guy Moles and also by Ryan Davies. And as they come into turn 12, looking from the YouTube chat back to here now, we look to the relative lap times over the last couple of laps. I think for Peter Cox, there may be some difficulty starting to creep in with the tyre degradation as they head onwards towards turn number 1 once again. Not long there, 3.5 minutes to go. Both drivers here pushing as much as they can. And will can Peter Cox hold on a little bit longer? We've typically seen it's been Peter Cox who's putting the pressure on, but now it's he who is the one who's being hunted, not the hunter. Meanwhile, coming on to the next lap as well, Sean Valandia here looking around the outside of Daniel Lee. Can he make it happen here as Lee comes off Valandia? Onto the brakes they go. Lee holds on to P6 in the elite class now. What is their P8 overall? But as they come down at 2, Lee struggles to grip there, and the rear tyres, I think, on that Ferrari are just starting to give up. And as they come out of turn 3, Valandia up the inside. The McLaren will be able to use its straight line acceleration here, plus the fact he does seem to have a little bit more tyre life available. You can see Tillin looking behind, trying to figure out who to place his bets on, but Sean Valandia is the right horse in the end. He makes his way out the inside and gets the job done as he moves up into P6 in the elite class. Now Martin Tillin will look at this and think, I can do it too, as we jump on board here with the TE Sport Corporate driver. Now heading on through the right-hander, turn 6 and 7 up towards 8. He'll be looking to try and find a way on the brakes here to get the move done, but I think he may have to just wait a little bit longer and be patient and wait for the run up towards turn 1 next time around. But Valandia goes a bit deep. The driver's there now going to start to step on one of his toes, and this could be an opportunity for Tilly. You can see Lee there coming off the inside, worried about Tilly trying to send it on the inside there into turn number 10 and trying to capitalise on the situation. And as they come into turn 11, I think Lee now has to turn his attention more and more to fighting off Tilly rather than chasing down Valandia, who has got himself back together and is now starting to break away as they make the way out to 12. But all three drivers here on the edge, and Tilly meanwhile uses the BMW stability to keep himself planted. It's going to be a drag race all the way round to turn 1. 2 minutes remaining here, and as they head onwards towards the timeline, Lee being passed there by Tillin. Powell also on the back here as the trio of drivers make the way to the timeline. Tillin brings it across there, covers off Lee. Lee on the slipstream now, switches back to the inside, looks to try and outbrake Tillin, but there's no way through. Powell goes high and around the outside, but he can't find it either, and Dean Powell right now, you would argue, is the one driver who will be doing everything he can to find his way on through. But as they make the way out to turn 2 and onwards to 4, meanwhile we look back to the battle for the pro lead here, and it's both Cox and their Edos who are sliding out of turns 4 into 5. The two drivers here definitely feeling the wear in the tyre compound as they make the way through turn 6 and 7. Off camera, Powell has found his way past Daniel Lee. That's into turn number 4, but we're going to focus on the battle for the pro lead for the time being, ladies and gentlemen, as this could be championship deciding right now. As they head down through turn number 9, they'll have one more lap after this, with the leaders making the way into turn 12 currently, and that's Matthew Chris followed by Cy Anthony of the elite class, who are leading overall. This battle will go on for one more lap, and I think it will be the ultimate fine margins here. We've already saw one costly mistake in the pit lane from John Edos. That was missing his pit box by a couple of metres and having to reverse the car back in. It's enabled Peter Cox to jump back into the lead of the pro class, and as he makes his way on to the final lap, the tyres seem to be giving way for the pair of them, but who's got enough rubber to make it to the end? Who has got the stamina to hold on? Well, now we will find out here. Final lap comes up. They go on to the 29th and final lap for today. Crisp is clear. Grebstad is down the road as we just see him pass through the camera, but for Cox versus Edos, it now means ever so much more, because this could be the lap that ends it all. And as they come down through 2 into 3 here, we can see Cox getting the better run through the centre S and immediately able to open the gap up to 6 tenths. Now they build their way up through the gearbox. Edos will start to neutralise on the speed advantages that Cox has gained, and in turn get the toe to start to close up. But as they head into turn number 4, the difference is negligible in terms of how much Edos has gained. They come out to the left-hander, up the hill they start to make the way, and the gap holding at half a second there. I think Edos now may just need a miracle to find this, unless Cox gets it wrong. And as they come through turn 6 and 7 here, goes a little bit deeper initially, Cox, but it doesn't cost him too much, half a tenth if that. They break the way into turn number 8. Car starts to slide away a little bit there for Cox, but he brings it back together. Edo's still right there. Jacko Taylor just watching on here, egging on his teammate from the cockpit of his Audi. But as they head up towards turn number 10, no sign of the move coming anytime soon. And as they head out to 10, up towards 11 and 12, we have to look away from them for a moment, ladies and gentlemen, and to Matthew Chris, because it's been a long time coming. It went away from him in Germany. He wasn't on the pace in Australia, but he's been on the pace today. And as he comes to the timeline, he puts his name into the history books. Matthew Chris takes his first win of the season in the elite and overall categories ahead of Cy Anthony P2, and then it will shortly be Håkon Grebstad who completes the elite podium there, P3 overall, followed by Peter Cox, who holds on to take the pro win, his second of the season, and it means it will go to the season finale in a week's time at Sebring between him and John Edos, who finishes P5 overall behind. Brilliant racing from the pair in the pro class, but in the end it was a pit stop that made the difference, with Jacko Taylor P6, Nathan Foster P7, Sean Melandi at P8 there ahead of Martin Tillin P9, and then we'll shortly have Dean Powell and Daniel Lee, followed by Dion Wren coming on through, and then Adrian Kukulas makes it another win in his campaign in a dominant run today in the AM class. 19, almost 20 seconds clear of Brock Freights at the finish line, and to put that in perspective, well, here is Darren Fellows, who just crossed line P4 in the pro class, and then here is Brock Freights, who crossed the line, holding off Casper Brotner to the line for P2 in the AM class, and what was P15 overall for the Tiki Sport community. Casper Brotner green class for Old Dudes in Cars, and a brilliant recovery drive there from Casper Brotner when it all went wrong early on. Stephen Masters P17, Mark Johnson in the end, P4 in the AM class, P18 overall, ahead of Aaron McGregor, who comes on home to finish P5 there in the AM class, and with it, he is your AM Drivers' Championship winner for this season. He has been absolutely merciless, and he's delivered once again. Colin Patterson, P20 there, P5 in the Pro class, and then just behind Thomas Barger, who completes a run to P6 in the AM class. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, those are all your finishers on the lead lap. But what a thrilling race from start to finish, and will for Matthew Crisp, a deserved win there, as I think he may have just run out of fuel after crossing the line. He's being pushed to the pit line by Håkon Grebstad, and well, to be fair, Grebstad will go into the season finale with a considerable opportunity to win the championship versus Daniel Thomas. And as they come across the line, this goes to show, whilst they may have come together at the Nürburgring, the two of them are not shy of being friends. They are still friends as a result of it, as they cross the line there, and two elite class winners. And for John Eddowes, well, I think today he'll be kicking himself for that one mistake, as in fact, is that Darren Sharples, who's yet to finish his race. Darren Sharples hasn't quite made it, but they're going to push him across the line there. Eddowes has enough fuel to do it, and Sharples will be your last finisher today, 5 laps down in the end, but he will take the finish, P11 in the AM class. Beautiful spirit between the two of them, and the privateer being given a little helping hand to the line. And as Brock Freites comes on around here, he'll be absolutely pleased, Will Freites, with that P2 in the AM class. A deserved podium there for the Tiki Supersport driver as he comes to a stop. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our racing for today, and let's take a look at those results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. We start off, of course, with the overall results, focusing on the top 10 and also our podium finishers outside the top 10. And Matthew Crisp there, your overall winner and your elite winner by 3.2 seconds in the end over fellow privateer of Cy Anthony. The two of them battling hard in the first stint, but Crisp found a way to extract an advantage over Anthony in the second stint and never let it go. Håkon Grebstad at P3 there for Ignium Motorsport. And with it, a key result which takes him into the lead of the Elite Championship going into the final round. And with the absence of Daniel Thomas today, the emphasis will be on Thomas to find a way to bounce back versus Grebstad come the conclusion. Peter Cox there in P4, your pro winner there, and his first top 5 of the season for UKSimRacing. A fantastic drive for the pro driver. Then we should say that's top 5 overall, and just beating John Eddowes to the post there by 4/10 of a second. It could not have been closer. It all came down to the finest of margins, and it means between the two pro drivers we have a championship battle that goes to Sebring. The Tiki Supersport Kimi driver there not able to do enough to come home your pro winner, but still P2 in class. And then Jacko Taylor, the teammate for Tiki Supersport Car Marte, staying behind John Eddowes all the way to the finish there, not wanting to intervene. I think there would have been fury down in the garage if Eddowes had not been given the opportunity to hunt down Cox, and completely understandable with Nathan Foss there, P7 for Simran Racing Blue, in what was an opportunity for a podium, but it didn't come his way today. Ahead of Sean Valandia, P8 for Tiki Supersport Kimi, and then Martin Tillin for Tiki Supersport Co for P9, ahead of Dean Powell, who completed the overall at top 10. Daniel Lee Besseres P11, and as we now focus on our podium finishers in terms of where they finished overall, but the podium finishers of each class, we see Dion Wren there bringing home at 3rd place in the pro class. A great drive from Dion Wren to be on the podium, ahead of Adrian Kukulis there, your AM winner, the privateer, P13, and a deserved win by 20 plus seconds. And then we see Brock Freites P15, your second place AM driver, who held off Casper Brotner to the line. The Tiki Supersport driver delivering his best result of the season. And Casper Brotner then not too far off, only separated by half a second in the end to round off the AM podium. But as we continue to look on down the results here, of course, we did have a number of drivers who finished a lap down, if not more, and that included Simon Hartley, Jack Bullen, and then well, those are the two who finished a lap down. Michael Warrington, who finished 5 laps down, the same for Daniel Pays. Joe Newman, 6 laps down. Darren Sharples, 7 laps down there. Sorry, 6 laps down, we should say, but being pushed to the finish line in the end. And we can see Carl McGuirt, 12 laps down with that retirement, and the rest of our retirees included James Connolly, Ben Watkinson, David Larson, and Eric Stegen. But out of our 32 finishers in the end, ladies and gentlemen, 21 finished on the lead lap, and in the end it was a grand total of 27 who finished on a given lap of the race. A fantastic race from start to finish, and now we come on to our individual classes. We can see Matthew Chris then in the elite class taking the win today, his first winning the class in the season, ahead of Cy Anti. A return to podium. It's been some time since we've seen that Cy Anti on the podium, but deserved one at that, and Håkon Grebstad continuing that unbreakable run of podium finishes for Ignium Motorsport, ahead of Jacko Taylor and Nathan Foster. Sean Valandia and the TK Kimi McLaren was looking very fast today, but a couple of early incidents cost him very dear and having to fight his way back up to P6, ahead of fellow TK corporate driver Martin Tillim, and then Dean Powell just inching ahead of Daniel Lee. And I think right now, if there was an award for the most overtakes in a single race, Dean Powell may just be picking that up, because he had to battle his way up and down through the elite order all the way through at the session today. And we'll don't question it in the fact that we would definitely say that Dean Powell right now is showing a resurgence in form that we'd love to see continue at Sebring. Daniel Lee at P9, they're just not quite on the pace in the Ferrari, but don't count out the privateer at Sebring. He'll definitely try and pull off one last surprise. And then Stephen Masters completing the elite top 10, ahead of Besseres Joe Newman and Carl McGurk there with that retirement, 12 laps from the finish. Then we come on to the pro class, and we can see their confirmation Peter Cox, your winner by half a second for UKSimRacing over TK Sport Kimi's John Eddowes, with Dion Ring completing the podium, and then Darren Fellows finishing at a further what was 19 seconds behind, with BDM Racing having a difficult day today, but Fellows finding a way to extract some key points, and then Colin Patterson from TK Sim Sport ahead of David Lowerson, and Lowerson having that unfortunate retirement. And as we come on to the AM class here, we can see Adrian Kukulic, your winner by almost 20 seconds in the end, ahead of Brock Freites, with Casper Rotner rounding off the AM podium for Old Dudes in Cars. And then Mark Johnson, in what was a difficult day today, a number of incidents cost him dear, and only able to salvage a P4. I say only able to, given what happened. I think he'll be pleased with that for UKSimRacing. The team will be as well. And then Aaron McGregor with that P5, confirming his status as champion. Of course, it won't be the way he wants to take his championship crown, a P5, rather than being on the podium. But indeed, if we remember, sometimes champions are crowned outside of the podium, and it includes, of course, Jenson Button's F1 Championship campaign coming to its successful conclusion in Brazil in 2009, where he didn't finish on the podium and finished all the way down at the bottom of the top 10. But as we can see there, Aaron McGregor taking that championship status. Thomas Barger P6 there, ahead of Simon Hartley, who finished a lap down ahead of fellow TK Sim Sport driver, albeit the two outfits of Corporate and Gimme of Jack Bullen. And then Michael Warrington finishing 5 laps down there for TK Sim Sport Car Marte, ahead of Daniel Pace at Old Dudes and Cars, who completed the AM top 10. Darren Sharple's best SP11, a difficult day today, ahead of James Conley, one of 3 retirements. We also have Ben Watkinson and Eric Stegen. But that concludes our results there in our individual classes. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to get ready for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. It's been an intense, it's been a tight, and it's been a very stressful day for many a driver around here. Indeed, I think the heat of the Brazilian surface has got to a few, but let's hear their thoughts about it very shortly. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers, and we've got 3 interviewees for this evening. We're going to be hearing from 2 of our elite drivers and 1 of our pros. We're going to be starting off with our elite winner from today and our overall winner of Matthew Crisp. It'll be interesting to hear his thoughts on what's been a superb drive today, before then coming on to Peter Cox, our pro winner from UKSimRacing, who'll be taking the Pro Championship down to the wire, and then we'll be hearing from Daniel Lee, the privateer in the elite class, who found himself right in the medley and the mix and not on the pace day, but we're interested to hear his insights. And already joining me in the interview room now is Matthew Crisp. Matthew, firstly, allow me to say congratulations for sealing your maiden win in your championship campaign, and what a way to do it today in dominant fashion, albeit you had one driver who wanted to stay with you all the way to the end, and that was Si Anthony. You must be absolutely pleased at bringing home your maiden win.
Yeah, thank you very much. It sort of feels like a bit of a long time coming, because I feel like most of the season I've had the pace to run at the front and challenge for the wins, but things haven't quite worked out. But yeah, do you know what? I'll be honest, I didn't feel under pressure that much. I don't know if on the broadcast it looked a bit different, because obviously Si was all over me for most of that race, but I wasn't really feeling the pressure. I was sort of quite confident in myself and the strategy I had to come out on top.
Oh, indeed. And speaking about it being a long time coming, of course, we saw at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit how you had the pace, but in the end it was a very close-fought rivalry between yourself and Håkon Grebstad, which saw both of you go sideways at one point. Down under in Bathurst, it just looked as though Grebstad was in a world of his own in the McLaren. But today, you nailed it out of the box in qualifying, and well, just take us through from your perspective, qualifying laps at Interlagos, it seems to be your cup of tea.
Well, one of the reasons actually I changed to the BMW at mid-season was mainly for this track, just because of how good that car is around here, because the altitude really helps. BMW is really good because of the altitude. So yeah, I was actually quite surprised, to be honest, because sort of to have the couple of tenths gap that I did in the practice session, which been in qualifying, I could drive sort of at 95%. I knew I had a couple of tenths in hand, and yeah, I mean in the end it was a couple of hundredths for the second decided the pole position. But yeah, I was quite surprised myself with that.
Well, indeed, it was close between yourself and the Porsches that qualified alongside you, so that was Nathan Foster, if my memory serves me correctly. But then when the race got underway, it was almost as if Foster had a bit of a slow start. Si Anthony capitalised, and as we watched the start on the replay at the moment in the background, you did a good job of bunching the field together and making everybody go at the last possible second.
Yeah, it's one of the advantages with having a sort of quite a long run to the start-finish line. Sort of after the pace car goes off, you sort of there's quite a bit of time. You can either go late or go early, and yeah, so I managed to surprise the guys and have a completely clean run from the start. And that was quite important, because I could basically instantly start saving the tyres, saving that little bit of fuel you need to do the extra lap, and yeah.
And speaking of saving the tyres and whatnot, we saw track temperatures today push upwards of 50 degrees centigrade. From your perspective, how does that change the way you have to approach the driving?
Well, my strategy was always to change the right side tyres at the pit stop. I don't know if anyone else did that, and certainly Si didn't change any tyres. So it was I could go hell for leather through the left-handed corners and sort of had to save a bit through the right-handed corners. But yeah, if I didn't take the right side tyres, I would have really been struggling at the end, because at the pit stop, my right front was down to about 52%. So you can imagine at the end, it would have been less than 20% probably. So yeah.
Oh, goodness me, it would have been absolutely threadbare. And we saw elements in the first stint before the pit stop where Si Anthony was taking a quick look up the inside, potentially look around the outside into turn one, but you looked quite comfortable in fending him off. Was it just that you had the speed in the car and you also had the fuel you could use, or was it you could see the moves coming quite a way away? They were being signposted for you.
Yeah, when you have someone behind you like that for almost basically the entire race, you sort of learn where they're quicker and where they're slow. And I knew he was much better on the brakes than me into turn one. So if he was going to go for a move, it would be into there. We had a bit of a moment just after the pit stop where he went for a move up the inside and he overshot the corner slightly, and I had to take a avoiding action across the grass. But I mean, it was a really good battle. It was all good in the end.
Indeed, we saw that little bit of a moment there. We wondered if there was a bit of contact, but it just sounds like then the two of you are giving each other space, and will things settling on down. Indeed, we did see Sire backing the car off there to let you retake the lead of the race, and from that point onwards, the gap just started to open up, and a 3-second advantage come the finish. And I do have to ask, with the BMW looking so strong and powerful around here, how are you feeling going into the season finale at Sebring?
I'll be honest, Sebring's not a track that I've driven too much, only recently, and I've actually started to quite enjoy it. Previously, it was one of those ones that I always used to avoid. It used to come up, thinking, "Oh, I won't do that week. I'll drop that week." But I'm not sure, to be honest, what cars would be good there. I think the BMW is mainly strong anyway. I'm sure Håkon will be back because he got a podium. I think only also wrapped up the championship by the sounds of it with that result, so he'll be up there. So if anything, it could be much closer at the front, and an endurance race as well. So more pit stop strategy than the single one that we have here. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on there. And just with regards to your championship campaign, of course, after today, based on provisional results, Stewart's inquiries outstanding, we see you in P6 now with 55 points, 5 off of Ryan Moles. Are you looking to go for that top 5 finish come the very end?
Yeah, definitely. Although, based on what I expected coming into the season, and I think every race so far, I've had some sort of issue during the race where I've had sort of a small incident or I've made my own mistake. So, but yeah, P5 of the championship would be a nice result if I could bring it home.
Well, we'll have to see if you can achieve that ambition next week. But just before we do let you go, Matthew, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Just thank you to my team at Alcontech NHR. I know, even though they're not racing in this league, I know they're all watching every week and they're supporting me. So yeah, thanks to those guys.
I'm sure they'll appreciate the mention, Matthew. But with that, congratulations on your maiden win in the series. It's finally come about. Can you make it 2 out of 2 next time out? We'll have to wait and see. But also, thank you for joining me in the interview room this evening.
Cheers.
All the best. So here and there from Matthew Crisp, our elite winner, adding his name to the history books for Season 9 to be another driver who's picked up the win outside of Daniel Thomas, Ryan Moles and Håkon Grebstad. It's been a long time coming. I'd 100% agree with Matthew on that. We have seen moments of brilliance from him throughout the season. We've seen the paces there, and it's finally been on full display today. And with Cy Anthony keeping it honest on that first stint, in the end, the little battle between the two of them, and things settled down after that. Crisp flew away to a nice clean victory, and can he bring on home another win come the season finale and bring on home with it P5 in the Elite Championship stands? Indeed, it has not been a season without incident, but he'll be looking to try and have another race without incident next time out. But going from one driver who has had a race without incident today to a driver who's had to really push every step of the way to try and find a way to bring on home the win, and he did so successfully. It is Peter Cox in the Pro class, and as we get ready to interview him, it is going to be interesting to hear his thoughts on exactly how this race played out from the start, what went wrong in qualifying, and then how he was able to bring himself back into the race after the pit window. But as we wait for him to join us, also the UKSimRacing driver, will be interested to hear his perspective on how he's been brought back into the championship now with only one more round to go. And as he joins me now, Peter, allow me to firstly say congratulations on a successful run to the win today, and with it, taking the championship down to the wire in a week's time at Sebring. I have to ask you firstly, you must be absolutely shattered by the fact you've had to work so hard today to make that win possible.
You are absolutely spot on. That was very hard work. That was probably one of the most intense races I have ever had.
Oh, goodness me. Well, it wasn't without incident in terms of having to fight hard for it. And let's take things back to qualifying firstly. The qualifying session was incredibly tight between yourself and John Eddowes for the pro pole. But also there was the consideration of the fact that the two of you in the end would be separated by Håkon Grebstad in amongst the 10th that separated, well, not even the 10th, half a 10th that separated the two of you in terms of your qualifying times. How did qualifying go for you, and what was your reaction to the final times of it?
So I thought I was going to actually qualify really well, and it was a good qualifying session. I'm pretty sure that everybody who ever qualifies knows they've left some tenths on the table. It wasn't perfect. There was some time that I could have like held on to. When I looked at the results after I'd finished my 4 laps, and I saw John 2 places in front of me, my heart sank, and I must admit, I let out an expletive. Thought, okay, gonna have to do this on track. It was just like, okay, right, here we go.
Oh, goodness me. I can imagine the emotions boiling over. And I think there might have been a few more expletives, correct me if I'm wrong, at the start of the race when we saw John gain a load of places and
Oh
you fell
wow!
backwards.
Oh wow! Yeah, absolutely. So yeah. So like a couple of the other races, because we're pros, we're not actually directly racing the elites. But unlike the previous race where I was in amongst the elites and John was behind me, it didn't, losing places didn't really matter that much. But I needed to beat John to keep this championship alive, the season championship alive. And going backwards with the elites wasn't any good. But what I couldn't do is in the early laps, there was no point in kind of racing so hard that we were going to have a problem. If somebody was going to push it, I was going to have to let them go, and that's what happened. And I thought, at that point, I thought, oh, this is just not going to be my day. And then I think slowly the performance in the car came back to me, and I seemed to get better relatively to some of the guys who were around me. I mean, it wasn't easy, but it was easier to pull up behind Danny, who was fighting in front with, I think it was Joe, and I started to pull away from the guys behind as well. Yeah.
Oh, indeed. And just on that, of course, once you started to find the pace and the momentum, we saw this odd situation whereby you'd put the pressure on the likes of, say, Joe Newman, for example, and Jacko Taylor, only then to find that an elite driver from behind in the form of Dean Powell wanted a piece of the race in action.
Well, absolutely, yes, that was funny. I think it was Joe who I came up behind, and maybe it was Jacko. I came behind, and I was putting under pressure, and we were having a good old race. And I needed to get past him so I could get to John. The problem was that because he had to defend into turn 1. He was slow coming down the hill towards turn 2. That kind of balked me. I was then just really slow on the remaining straight, and I couldn't defend against that. So I had to let the guy behind me go. Oh, apologies, I can't remember who it was. Did you say it was Dean? I think it was Dean.
Yes, maybe. Dean Powell.
Yeah. So yes. So, but I mean, he got past me, and then I managed to catch up. And to be honest, by that point, I thought, well, John's keeping it on the track. I'm keeping it on the track. The choice is then whether to go for the undercut or to actually save as much as possible and see how many laps the race is going to go, and then pit, try the overcut if you can possibly do it, or save as much fuel that if you pit in the same lap, that you can actually fill the tank with less fuel than Mr. Eddowes would need to.
Well, speaking of the pit stop, of course, we saw you both come in, and Eddowes missed his pit box slightly and had to reverse back in. But between the two of you in terms of stationary time, it wasn't even a 1 second difference with a little bit less fuel needed to go into your car. You emerged out onto the back straight in the lead of the class. Surely there must have been a bit of a grin coming on your face, thinking you've beaten Eddowes at his own game, because he's normally been the one who's jumped back ahead of you based on the strategy.
Well, yeah. As soon as the thing is, I knew that I was saving as much as possible. And I've got this kind of auto pit, kind of auto refueler that was telling me, a certain amount to put in the tank, and it always invariably it overfuels by about a lap. But even then, I must have nudged the fuel down quite a lot, and I thought, well, I'm saving now. I could probably save some towards the end of the race. So I think I put in about 25 litres. I didn't know that John had to reverse into his pit stall. So that obviously helped me because he literally only just came out behind me. Without that, I guess I would have still been behind him. But so when I came in and I remembered Bathurst and John took me in the pits, and when I came out in front of him, it was like there was a grin. It was like okay, 1-1. But to be honest, I just didn't have enough fuel for the rest of the race, so I was saving like Billy for the rest of the race.
Oh, goodness me. And talking about the remainder of the race, of course, we saw you hold that lead for a while, keeping a couple of seconds gap, and then the gap started to come down on those final laps, down to 4 tenths, but it never got closer.
Well, no, because, I think it got up to about 2.5 at one point, but then we had a spinner in front of us at around, I don't know, T7 or T6 or something like that, which literally made it easy for John to close up to me by about 1.5 seconds, and I still had to save every lap, so I was going slower than normal, and on a couple of laps I saved, and then I had to push, because if once the car behind gets into the toe on that long straight, it becomes really difficult to defend. So it was kind of a really stressful balancing act, and that's why it was just so intense. It was intense from lap 1 all the way to the end. It was an awesome race. Awesome race.
Oh, indeed, it was fantastic to see here from the commentary booth, and of course, with the win, you've now taken it to the season finale. The delta between the two of you standing at what is their 7 points. Albeit you're the one who needs to make up the advantage with regards to the fact that you only managed to pick up 32 points back at Magny-Cours. So the ball's in your court to deliver a win next week. And not only that, also pick up the bonus points. And meanwhile for John, it's all about trying to deprive you of those points. But just breaking it down to basics, how do you feel for Sebring in Florida?
I love Sebring. It's one of my favourite tracks, and I've done a lot of laps around it in various different cars. So I will go there and I will have fun, as every race is. And it will be what it will be. I'll just do the best I possibly can. But to be honest, to be in the S9 championship right to the very last race is just awesome, and John's done a great job to get where he is. So it'll be being on the track with all you guys is just going to be another pleasure next week.
Oh, well, to be fair, it has been a day for you to remember, because firstly, a winning class, making you the second repeat winner outside of John. Also, a 4th place overall. Let's not let that go understated here. The two of you battling for P4 overall come to finish in amongst all the elite drivers. And then also, on a personal level, a special day for your daughter as well, to celebrate her birthday. Indeed,
it is my daughter's 26th birthday. How did that happen? I have no idea. Big shout out to my daughter Emily. Happy 26th birthday. Love you lots. A big shout out to you as well for passing your ARDS test. Well done, mate. So yeah, it's a good day all round.
Oh, most definitely. And coming back to yourself, Peter, of course, going into the season finale, we'll have to wait and see how you get on there. But before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give another shout out to or a thank you to, besides, of course, Emily and myself?
Right, so I think it's as normal with the UKSR team. So it's Chris. Well done on Manchester United, by the way. Congratulations to them. And to Mark Johnson, who got a P4 today, so that's a good result. And to all the competitors and the very fair racing that I saw, and commiserations to anybody who didn't have a good race. You'll be back. You will be back.
Well, with that, Peter, it's been a pleasure to have you in the interview room. As always, congratulations on your win today, and we look forward to seeing how you get on in a week's time at the season finale.
Cheers, matey. You take care.
All the best. So here and there from Peter Cox, our pro driver for UKSimRacing, today delivering where it mattered most in the race. It didn't work out in qualifying, and as he mentioned himself, a few expletives with regards to missing out on that pole position by the smallest margins, and then finding the elite driver of Håkon Grebstad sandwiched in between himself and John Eddowes. But he kept his head down, kept the pace on, ran the strategy to its conclusion. A little bit of lady luck perhaps intervening with the mistake from Eddowes to miss his pit box to have to quickly reverse back, but still after the pit stop, it was all about conserving the fuel and balancing the pace of the car versus that fuel conservation. And in the end, Peter Cox was able to bring it on home, becoming our second repeat winner in the Pro class. They've got 2 wins apiece, but it is a 7-point advantage to John Eddowes. And for Peter next week, it's going to be about winning and making sure he can gain what is effectively 7 points on his previous best performance. So it will need to be a win as a bare minimum for Peter to be able to seal the title, and for John Eddowes, his mission will be to win the season finale to deprive Peter from being able to take that result. Which of the 2 Titans will bring home the Pro Championship? We'll wait and find out then. But before we can wrap up for today, of course, we have one more interviewee, and that is none other than Daniel Lee, our 188 privateer driver. And as he joins me now, Danny, not the way you wanted it to go today. It looked tough out there, but you gave it everything you could, whether it was in qualifying or the race. Some brilliant battling moments, but the Ferrari just not giving you that yardage on the straights, it would seem.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal. I think I'm a victim of my own practice methods here because I find it best to do little bite-sized chunks a couple of days before a league event. So I'll do a bit of practice on Friday night, a bit of practice on Saturday night, and then obviously the big practice before the event. But I don't think any of those stints gave me a good view as to what I was really in for. You know, it's like picking a sofa at the showroom. You sit on it for 5 minutes and all seems fine, but you take it home after you've committed to it and you find out it pinches you in the sides or whatever. You know, really needed to give that setup a bit more of a long run because it became apparent that it just cut the rear right tyre to ribbons and the front left as well. But it didn't struggle to get any oversteer, that's for sure. So at the last third of the race, it was more drifting than driving. So not ideal. It was tough out there.
Well, I appreciate your insight on that one, because we did see, particularly, as you say, in the final third, the amount of times you were sliding slightly coming out of the medium speed corners, such as the Curva del Sol, and that goes a long way in explaining what was happening. But just dialing it all the way back to the qualifying session, in the end, we saw you qualify P10 overall, P8 in the elite class. It looked tough out there in the qualifying session, but we know you're one of those drivers who never lets qualifying quite hold you back when it comes to the race. But how was your qualifying session from your perspective? Was it the result you expected in terms of the time, or was there more out there?
I think there was a little bit more out there, but it wasn't there for me to find in that moment in time. As ever, in practice sessions, I can punch it up there because I'm gonna find it somewhere. But it's when you need it in that little snapshot of those 4 laps in qualifying, it just doesn't seem to appear. And that's been a theme for the past couple of races, just have not put it together. I accidentally underfueled slightly as well, so I only had enough fuel for 3 full pace runs, but my own error kind of coincidentally put me back in the pits, and it granted me that grace period of another lap to try, and that was the lap where I improved 4 tenths. So I was already struggling, and I was lucky to get away with 12th on the grid. I would have been much further back as well. That would have put me in a much worse position as well. So qualifying not ideal. There's something wrong with my qualifying form at the minute, which needs to be put straight. So yeah, normally I don't let qualifying get me down because in the race I'm used to either holding my ground or pushing forward. And in the opening few laps, it looked like that was going to be the case. But this was definitely a humbling kind of race for me.
Well, speaking of the race, of course, like you say, we've always seen you really want to push forward in the races. It's the one thing I like to say on the broadcast to everyone. It doesn't matter where you see Daniel Lee qualify. He's going to end up battling for the podium or the top 5 at some point. And on those opening laps, you were coming through the field like a knife through hot butter, but it seemed as though for every place you gained, then you would lose one to the likes of, say, Nathan Foster, alternatively Dean Power around you. How was it in the race? It looked like you had the speed on the straights and the medium speed corners, but there just wasn't enough to sustain it.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as if I was overdriving the car either. I don't tend to do that anyway. I'm a bit more of a Sergio Perez than a Max Verstappen. I tend to keep my tyres happy, but it just was not having it. Through those long left sweeping turns, the torque in the back of that Ferrari, just, any other time you'd be wanting more torque, but with the Ferrari I was actually turning the engine map down to about level 4, which is quite a lot, just to control a wheel spin on corners, such as turn 3, I think it is, but long left, and the corner before last, the long downhill left. I don't know my track names around here, I'm afraid, but anywhere where you had to put power down with a fair amount of steering, it was just skimming that right rear. And if I could go back and do it again, I'd be putting a lot more rear weight bias on that back corner. But again, it didn't come out in the wash during testing. I didn't find any problems with the setup then, but in the race, it really fell off a cliff no matter what I did. The tyre temperatures were up to about 110 degrees, which is never usually seen. Even with these high temps, that was really alarming to see.
Oh goodness, well you did fall back on the first stint, but with all the batting in front of you and also the pit strategy playing out, you had one of the fastest pit stops in the group. They're ranging at 14.2 seconds stationary time, and it leapt you right back up into the battle to be in contention for P6 overall, at P4 in the elite class. But then it seemed as though the tyre degradation and also the setup woes started to creep in there. But I have to ask, when you made those gains, did you think, okay, perhaps now there's a chance for me to pull off a bit of a miracle?
Yeah, based on past form, I tend to really enjoy the last 10 minutes of a race. I'm always wishing the races were a bit longer. That did not happen today. When you've been doing races as long as I have, you kind of know what you like. The last sort of sunset period of a race is always a good time for me. I'm always catching up. I'm always closing in on people. But this was a complete opposite. You know, it's like going to the same restaurant every week, ordering the same thing, and it's always perfect. But tonight, the chef rung in sick. It really was not up to standard. So hopefully next week will be better. But this one I can put behind me. I was glad to finish it. I did not want any more time or more laps. I just wanted to bring it home before I lost any more positions.
Well, in the end, bringing on home in P9 in class, P11 overall. And with that result, you've now lined yourself up on 88 points, meaning that you're neck and neck with Joe Newman, albeit behind based on result countback provisionally in the hunt for P3 in the Elite Championship. Now, the top two spots have gone to Håkon Grebstad and Daniel Thomas, but it's a rivalry for P3 for the finish between the two of you. And how are you feeling for Sebring in particular?
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. I mean, Joe didn't deserve to and have his race ended the way it did, but that sort of thing happens, and at least it means we're going to have a good Sebring round out of it. You know, a long endurance round at one of my favourite tracks. That should at least be interesting and a real sight to behold. So hopefully we have a good old battle there, and we occupy the same section of track, and it becomes a real one-on-one fight. So I'm looking forward to that quite a bit.
Oh, well, that's brilliant to hear, and I'm sure, Joe, from taking a quick look through the Discord chat, of course, which you guys and girls at home can't see while drivers communicate to one another, I think already there is that friendly rivalry between the two of you starting to rise up for Sebring. But coming back to yourself, Danny, just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a thank you or a shout out to on the broadcast this evening?
Just thanks to everybody here present on the grid for good racing again. It's always worth turning up for, and that's all you can hope for. And thanks to yourself for doing a great job of the broadcast, and the organisers of the league for making it happen.
Well, Danny, appreciate your kind words, and we're glad to hear you enjoying yourself a week in, a week out. It wasn't to be your day today, but still, we look forward to seeing you bounce back at the Sebring circuit. But until then, thank you for joining me in the interview room, and have a lovely rest of your evening.
Cheers, have a nice evening, see you next week.
All the best. So hearing there from Daniel Lee, our elite class driver there in the 188 Ferrari privateer machine. And it wasn't to be his day today, in his own words. The setup, despite the tests he run in terms of those pre-race tests, in the end not quite exposing the potential weaknesses of the setup. And whilst we can't see it at the moment in the background on the footage, we did, of course, if we cast our minds back to the late stages of the race, when we were live racing, we got to see how the car was starting to slide away, particularly in the medium speed and also some of the lower speed corners, and really just not working out in the end for Daniel Lee. He threw everything at it, whether it was strategy in the opening stint to close back up to that battle to be inside the top 6 overall and fighting for what was P4 in the elite class, and also looking for some daring overtakes, but when the car was just not complying in the end for our privateer, it was about damage limitation. And now it goes down to the wire in that battle between himself and Joe Newman for P3 in the elite class in a week's time at the Sebring International Raceway. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our 3 interviews for today. And you have just heard from Daniel Lee, our elite privateer in the 188 Ferrari. Also, previously, you heard from our pro winner for today. That's Peter Cox in the number 68 UKSimRacing BMW M4. And also, we got to hear from, firstly, the number 97 BMW M4 elite driver, the privateer of Matthew Crisp. And congratulations to all of them for their results today. And also, congratulations to all of our participants, wherever they may have finished, for participating today. But with that now, it's time for us to give you an update on the standings going into the season finale. Of course, these being provisional, subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. And, well, we start off with the Elite Drivers' Championship. And we can see after 7 of 8 rounds, it is Håkon Grebstad who leads the way on 129 to 112 points for Daniel Thomas. Now, we have had it confirmed in between going away from the racetrack to bring up the results here that given there are 2 drop scores in this championship, one in the sprint race rounds and one in the endurance rounds, there must be a drop in each of the round categories. This does mean that Håkon Grebstad's 3rd place today has been enough in the absence of Daniel Thomas to enable him to seal the Elite Championship for Ignium Motorsport. We didn't announce it, of course, when he crossed the finish line because we weren't sure, but congratulations to Håkon for a fantastic drive in the McLaren MP4 12C, and really you could date back the success of that drive to the sprint race at Monza and also the sprint at Bathurst. With those 2 sprints where he was in a world of his own and breaking away, and when that's combined with the win in the endurance race at Magny-Cours, using strategy there to win at the circuit de Nevers, where it was a rise to fame for Håkon Grebstad, and in the end, Daniel Thomas was not able to hit it back hard and fast enough to be able to stop Grebstad from being able to put himself in the position tonight. Then, in the absence of Daniel Thomas, Grebstad was able to pick up the final piece of the puzzle, which was the P3 on the podium, which has enabled him to become our elite champion for Season 9 of the GT3 League. So congratulations to him, and of course, congratulations on the runner-up spot for Daniel Thomas, the ProTech Motorsport driver now, really battling for pride in the season finale, and I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to go for one more win to make it even on the score there and make it 3 wins apiece. It's currently 3-2 for Grebstad. But then as we look to the battle for P3 there between Joe Newman from Siman Racing Red and the privateer of Daniel Lee, they're equal on points, but it is Newman who is ahead based on result countback, and which of the 2 will find the up hand at the very end. They've both got a score which they can improve upon at Magny-Cours in terms of the score they achieve there versus what they'll look to achieve at Sebring, albeit if we have to break it down to the fine margins, Newman has the greater amount he can potentially improve upon with 28 points for Magny-Cours, and therefore the maximum points available, of course, being 44. Could he find a whole 16-point overhaul there versus Daniel Lee, who has a maximum he can improve upon there of what is 12 points? We'll have to see. Ryan Moles there in P5, not in attendance tonight for ProTech Motorsport on 60 points. Still 5 points clear Matthew Crisp, but of course Crisp will be looking to try and jump into the top 5 right at the very end, with Sean Melandia, Dean Powell, Cy Anthony and Jacko Taylor completing the top 10. And Dean Powell in particular there showing great pace today, but it wasn't to go his way. But you can imagine he'll be looking to end his campaign on a high given the momentum he's building. And Cy Anthony as well with that 2nd place jumping into P9, 5 points clear of Jacko Taylor, who now fights to survive with Martinson in best of rest there, a point behind for Tiki Simsport Corporate. It's going to be the battle of the 2 sister teams there, with Tiki Simsport's Carl Marte, Jacko Taylor looking to hold on, and you have Sam Congreve in P12, 2 points clear of Josh Fletcher, with Nathan Foster and Damien Lobbit completed the top 15. Sam Sherwood in P16 there, the ProTech Motorsport driver not in attendance tonight, but ahead of Joshua Pratt, with Dan Blackwell, Ryan Davies and Stephen Masters completed the top 20, and it's Alexander Hill, Austin William Campbell, James Folks and Cameron Hawes who complete your elite standings after 7 rounds. We then come on to the pro class. And we can see here, John Eddowes leads the way for Tiki Simsport Kimi by 7 points over Peter Cox from UKSimRacing. Now, to break this down, as we mentioned briefly in our interview with Peter Cox, there is a requirement that Peter Cox needs to improve his score at Magny-Cours by a grand total of what is at least 7 points for this to go down to the wire. They are both on equal wins. They both have 2 wins apiece. So if it comes down to the fact that neither of them win, well, Peter Cox will need then to take 2nd place and all the bonus points that come with it as a minimum, and then we'll have to see how that will be exactly invigilated. But excluding perhaps the worst case scenario for the pair, what it means is, in basic principle, Peter Cox will need to take the win at Sebring, and that will give him 40 points. That's an immediate improvement of 8. If he can pick up the fastest lap and the pole position lap as well, that's 2 points for each of those accolades as well, and that will enable to improve. If he finishes 2nd, meanwhile, Then he'll then need to at least pick up one of those sets of bonus points there in order to be able to get the 7 points he needs. But you can count on John Eddowes there, of course your winner at Magny-Cours, to be looking to make it another win in the endurance race round at Sebring, and also as a minimum pick up both of the bonus points, the fastest lap in qualifying and also the fastest lap in the racing class, in order to be able to deprive Peter of everything he needs to be able to jump into the championship lead come the very end. How will it unfold? We'll have to see next week, but it's going to be tight margins. Meanwhile, in P3 on 79 points and not in attendance again today, Alex Gaines stays in P3, but now under threat from Edward Knight, who's 2 points behind, albeit not in attendance as well, from England Motorsport Spark. Then you can see there Nathan Scott in P5 on 75 points, and really with a good number of drivers not playing parts tonight. Chris Edison of UKSimRacing the same, and David Lowison there, the first driver, had the unfortunate retirement early on and therefore not gained any points. It comes to the likes of Dion Wren, who is podium today now on 36 points, and he could perhaps look to pick up another podium next time and leapfrog his way right up there into the top 5. Colin Patterson for Tiki Sport not too far behind that, a further what is 7 points off, with Darren Fellows a point off to complete the top 10 for BDM Racing behind the Tiki Sport driver. And then we have best of rest Tom Farr there on 24 points, only ahead of Jeff Griffiths based on result countback, with Joel Amos, Paul Smith and Jaco Boshoff completed the top 15. And then it is Stuart Brown, Mark Collicott, Martin Fernie, Daniel Merchant and Ollie Pimley who complete your pro standings. Now coming on to the AM Drivers' Championship, we can see that Aaron McGregor, with the result from today, whilst it wasn't a win, the P5 is enough to cement him and crown him as our championship winner in the AM class for season 9, with the gap between himself and Casper Brotner being 29 points, and Brotner cannot improve by that margin in the Sebring endurance race, given the fact he picked up 28 points out of a potential maximum of 44 at Magny-Cours. So congratulations to Aaron McGregor, a championship campaign built on consistency with 4 wins, the most wins of anybody in the AM class by a significant margin, and right now I think he'll be absolutely rejoicing at that fact. Casper Brotner meanwhile has jumped into P2 a point clear of Adrian Kukulis, but the rivalry between the two of them will go down to the season finale, with both drivers there looking to improve. The change will be Brotner can improve by a maximum of what is there 16 points to Kukulis, who can only improve by a theoretical 8 points given his performance at Magny-Cours. So Kukulis will really be on looking to deprive Brotner as many points as possible, but will he be able to do it? Darren Sharples meanwhile a further 9 points behind there in P4, and after difficulties at Magny-Cours and today, he'll be looking to have one final hurrah. And could we see at the privateer in the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo pull a surprise on the pair of Kukulis and Brotner, with Michael Warrington a further 8 points behind there, and the Tiki Sport car Marte driver falling out of the hunt for P2, but he could still play a key element in that battle come the very end and be fighting for a potential top 3. Eden Frazina meanwhile not in the 10th stage due to continued technical issues, and therefore staying at P6 on 57 points, 1 point clear of Mark Johnson, who despite the difficulties has moved to 56 points and up to P7 ahead of Brock Freights there with a great second place finish, who's also moved into P8 on 50 points, 7 clear of James Conley and Eric Stogan completing the top 10. 3 points behind, best of rest, Matt Maddox there for BDM Racing, joined on 33 points, but ahead based on result countback from Daniel Pays and Old Dudes in Cars. And then we have Thomas Barger, Ben Watkinson and A.G. Garcia completing the top 15, with Simon Hartley, Jack Bullen, Ryan Gonzalez, Frank Klein and Richard Curie completing our AM Drivers' Championship standings. But then lastly, we come onto our Teams Championship standings, of course, and we can see here that after 7 rounds of 8, well, it is ProTech Motorsport who continue to lead, albeit now only by a margin of 5 points, and not in attendance day means that all the advantage they have carved out for themselves has been taken away. Now they are practically even in terms of the amount of points they can improve upon versus Tiki Sport Kimi going into our final race at Sebring, with the teams respectively owning 58 and 56 points from the Magny-Cours endurance round, so therefore both teams will need to be on their best in order to get the most out of the round and seal the championship in their favour. Behind them on what is there, in fact I think there's a bit of a mix up with the points, but UKSimRacing in P3, and we can see there the team continue to chase after the top 2 and also in contention for a potential swipe at that P2 position as a minimum, with what is there Ignium Motorsport in P4 and holding on to that position ahead of Tiki Sport Car Marte. Simon Racing Red, Old Dudes in Cars, P6, P7 there. They continue their rivalry to the line with Ignium Motorsport Spark, Simon Racing Blue and Symphony White completing the top 10. And then best of rest there in P11, Tiki Sport on 81 points ahead of BDM Racing with a gap of 20 points there, potentially potentially being overhauled depending on how results play out for the pair. And then Tiki Sim Sport Corpa, Tiki Sim Sport Toa, Team Zor and Symphona Esports Black complete your team's standings. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our summary of the standings for round 7's conclusion, and we now call it an end. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today and you want to know more about the UK sim racing community, then firstly, why not check out our website? You saw it appear on screen earlier today, and it may be found at the web address at uksimracing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you don't want to go to our website, but you may want to follow us on social media, well, first, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, then definitely do so to stay up to date with all the latest broadcasts and racing action, but also you can follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_. We'd also like to use this moment to make a big thank you to our affiliates, who include Swelliomeda Sim Racing Coaching, and well, Swelliomeda Sim Racing Coaching, the creator of the Motor Racing Checklist. Swelliomeda can help you take your sim racing driving to the next level. Whether you're looking to gain a 10th, improve your approach to the racing line, or develop your consistency, Swelliomeda has a coaching course to meet your needs. Plus, women being a multi-time champion of official iRacing series, including the 2021 PSSCC, you know you are receiving coaching for the very best in the industry. Also there, Race Anywhere, the provider of curated sim racing equipment, aimed to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. We also have Demon Tweaks, the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide. So no matter what your level of discipline, Demon Tweaks could help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions, whether it be in the simulator or the real world. We also have SimLab there, our most recently introduced affiliate, the leading manufacturer of high quality sim racing related hardware. As a proud partner of Mercedes-AMG Petronas Esports, SimLab aims to enhance virtual racing experiences with uncompromising solutions that push the boundaries of esports, with in-house engineering and production facilities which combine Dutch design and high-end craftsmanship. SimLab is the go-to brand for quality sim racing rigs. And then lastly, Amazon. The company is striving to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer, and the Earth's safest place to work through the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, including but not limited to Amazon Web Services, Amazon Alexa, and one-click shopping. I can tell you now, ladies and gentlemen, one click is all it will take in terms of a good set of points if our drivers want to win their championships, whether it be in the Pro class or 30 in the Teams Championship, and it will all come down to Sebring International Raceway. We have wrapped up 2 of our 4 championships. The Elite class has gone to Håkon Grebstad. The AM class has gone to Aaron McGregor. But in the Pro class, it will be the rivalry of the Titans of John Eddowes and Peter Cox. And in the Teams Championship, it will go down to the wire between ProTech Motorsport and Tiki Sim Sport Kimi, with UK Sim Racing also having an outside chance. How will it all conclude and what's to be resolved? We'll find out in round number 8 on Sunday, the 5th of March 2023. But until then, we have been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.